The microphone gave one sharp squeal when Tessa took it from Jonah's hand. She smiled at our guests like she was about to announce a raffle winner. Her eyes were wet, but Tessa could cry without losing mascara. It was one of the many things she did better than I did. "I know this isn't how Leah wanted tonight to go," she said, pressing her free hand to her chest, "but she made a brave decision. The wedding is off. Somebody dropped a fork." I looked at Jonah. He looked at me. Neither of us moved. My father did. Dad pushed back his chair, lifted his champagne, and cleared his throat with the solemn pride he usually reserved for retirement speeches and military funerals. "To Leah," he said, "for remembering that no celebration is worth breaking a family." My mother raised her glass first, then my aunt, then 3 people at the table nearest the bar, although one of them had clearly missed what Tessa said and looked excited about it. Tessa turned toward me. For 1 second, beneath the performance, she looked relieved. That was how I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. Jonah stepped forward and took back the microphone. "Actually," he said, his voice so calm it frightened me, "that's not what Leah decided." My father's glass stopped halfway to his mouth. 5 months earlier, Dad had called me his steady girl while I held my sister's boots and watched her marriage come apart in a driveway. It was a Tuesday night in March, cold enough that the rain had a little grit in it. Tessa stood beneath the open hatch of my car in a cream sweater and no coat, arguing with her husband on speakerphone while I tried to fit a brass floor lamp between 2 plastic storage bins. "No, Evan, I'm not taking the blender," she said. "You bought the blender. You picked it out. That doesn't make it emotionally mine." I caught Dad's eye over the roof of the car. He mouthed, "Emotionally mine?" I bit the inside of my cheek. Dad was holding 6 pairs of Tessa's shoes against his chest. He had come straight from work and still wore his navy windbreaker with Mercer Tool Supply stitched over the pocket, even though he had retired from Mercer Tool 3 years earlier. He said the jacket had earned the right to keep working. Tessa ended the call with, "Enjoy your blender," and stabbed the screen. Nobody asked what had happened. We knew the broad version. Evan had packed a suitcase the week before, come back for 2 nights, and then announced that he was moving into a furnished apartment across town because he couldn't hear himself think in the house. Tessa had repeated that phrase so many times it had become a family member. Can't hear himself think had ruined Sunday dinner. Can't hear himself think had made Mom cry in the laundry room. Can't hear himself think was apparently sleeping on a gray sectional near the airport. "I need the blue bin," Tessa said. "It's under the lamp," I told her. "The blue one has my good towels." Dad looked down at the shoes in his arms. "Are there bad towels?" "Please don't start." "I'm not starting. I'm learning." She glared at him, and he gave her the soft, crooked smile that had always worked on both of us. Tessa held out for maybe 2 seconds before her mouth twitched. That was the problem with my family. Even at our worst, we could be funny. I rearranged the car until the blue bin was accessible. Tessa opened it, checked the towels, and shut it again without taking anything out. "Okay," she said. "I just needed to know they were here." Dad leaned toward me. "Steady girl." It was barely audible, meant as gratitude. I felt it warm me anyway. My phone buzzed in my back pocket. A photograph from Jonah filled the screen. 2 pieces of grocery store cheesecake on our coffee table, each with a fork stuck in it. Underneath, he had written, "Happy cake tasting." I had forgotten. Not the real cake tasting. That was Thursday. This was Jonah's idea after I'd admitted I was nervous about spending $48 to sample flavors I could already identify by name. He'd bought 2 cheap slices so we could practice having opinions. I typed, "I'm sorry." Still at Tessa's. 3 dots appeared immediately. "Tell your dad the lamp goes shade down or it'll snap at the neck." I looked at the lamp wedged diagonally across the back seat. Jonah says the lamp goes shade down. Dad frowned. "Jonah doesn't trust my loading? Jonah has met you?" "Fair." Tessa wrapped both arms around herself. "Can I stay with you tonight?" The question landed gently, which somehow made it heavier. "Of course," I said. "You have that little room. We call it a guest room. It has a desk and a stationary bike. Our guests are encouraged to improve themselves." She laughed once, then covered her face. Dad set the shoes on the wet driveway and went to her. Tessa folded into him with the ease of somebody who never wondered whether she was allowed to need comfort. He tucked her head under his chin, one hand spread protectively across her back. I stood beside the open car with rain working its way into my collar and thought of 2 sweating pieces of cheesecake. Then I hated myself for thinking about cheesecake. Jonah had moved the stationary bike into our bedroom by the time we got home. The guest bed was made with the green quilt his mother had given us, and a glass of water sat on the nightstand beside a bottle of aspirin. Tessa walked in, saw everything, and hugged him. "You're a good man," she told him. "I've been saying that for years," he said. She held him tighter. "Don't make it weird. I'm physically trapped. You're in charge of the weirdness." I carried her overnight bag down the hall. It had started as one overnight bag. By the time Dad left, there were 4 bags: the blue bin, the emotionally neutral lamp, and a cardboard box labeled "Bathroom Mostly." Mom arrived 20 minutes later with soup. Denise Mercer did not believe any human crisis could be addressed without chicken broth. She came through the door in a raincoat carrying a Dutch oven with both hands. "Has she eaten?" "Mom, I'm standing right here," Tessa called. That has never answered the question. I had half a protein bar. Mom closed her eyes briefly, as if receiving terrible news from a doctor. Jonah took the pot. "I'll get bowls. You have sour cream?" "We do." "Fresh?" He looked at me. Define fresh. Mom was already opening our refrigerator. Within half an hour, the 5 of us were crowded around our small dining table. Tessa wore one of my sweatshirts. Dad had returned because he'd left his glasses, then stayed because there was soup. Mom kept touching Tessa's wrist as if checking for a pulse. Jonah's knee rested against mine under the table. Nobody said the word separation. Nobody said divorce. Tessa described Evan's apartment building in the tone of someone reviewing a disappointing hotel. "There's a fountain in the lobby," she said. "An indoor fountain with rocks." Dad tore a dinner roll in half. "That's how they get you." "Who?" "Fountain people." Mom gave him a look. "Frank." I'm on her side. "I don't trust indoor water." Tessa smiled into her soup. She could do that, pull a room toward her without asking. Even wrecked, she had gravity. I didn't resent it exactly. Gravity wasn't a moral failure. You just had to be careful what you placed nearby. After my parents left and Tessa went to bed, I found Jonah standing over the sink, scraping hardened cheesecake into the trash. "I would have eaten that," I said. "You say that now. I've eaten older." "I know. It's one of the things I'm hoping marriage fixes." I leaned against the counter. He wore gray sweatpants and the faded college t-shirt I kept trying to throw away. His hair had started thinning near the temples, which he treated as an interesting scientific development rather than a personal betrayal. He was 36, patient with waiters, impatient with self-checkout machines, and incapable of pretending to like decorative pillows. "I'm sorry about tonight." He rinsed the plates. "You don't have to apologize. I forgot. You had an actual emergency." "Did I?" He turned off the water. The apartment went quiet except for the heating vent clicking above us. "Her husband left," he said. "That counts." "I know. I lowered my voice, although Tessa was at the other end of the hall. Sometimes everything with her becomes an emergency because we all start running before anybody asks if there's a fire. Jonah dried his hands on a dish towel. "You want me to tell you it's fine?" "No. It's fine." I laughed despite myself. He stepped closer and hooked one finger through my belt loop. "For tonight, it's fine." There was no accusation in the words. That made me hear the boundary more clearly. For tonight. Tessa stayed 17 nights. On the second morning, she rearranged our coffee mugs because she said handles looked calmer when they faced the same direction. On the 4th, she joined our streaming account and changed my profile picture to a cartoon donkey. On the 6th, she cried because Evan canceled their shared phone plan before she had chosen a new one. She was also unexpectedly useful. She fixed the loose hem on my work pants, made excellent scrambled eggs, and spent an entire Sunday addressing wedding invitations in handwriting, so elegant that Jonah said it looked forged. At night, after he went to bed, she and I sat cross-legged on the living room floor, drinking wine and sorting envelopes. "Do you think I missed it?" she asked once. "Missed what?" The moment it became unsalvageable. Her voice had none of its usual drama. She was staring at an invitation addressed to Dad's cousin in Ohio. "I don't know," I said. "I think everyone else knew before I did. Mom and Dad didn't. Mom and Dad think a marriage is healthy if both people show up for Thanksgiving." I smiled, but she didn't. Then she looked at me and said, "Don't let that happen to you." It was such a naked, sincere warning that I reached for her hand. That was the Tessa I kept trying to recover later, the woman on my floor, holding my invitations and wanting my marriage to be better than hers. The next morning, Mom called while I was driving to work. "Tessa said you have a cake appointment Thursday, a tasting. She doesn't think she can go. She doesn't have to." There was a pause. "I think she's worried you'll be disappointed." "I won't be." "Maybe you could move it. Just until she's more settled." I changed lanes and watched a delivery truck splash through a puddle. Jonah took the afternoon off. He'll understand. That answer came so quickly, it felt rehearsed. At lunch, I called the bakery and moved the tasting 3 weeks. Then I texted Jonah. He replied with a thumbs up, followed by, "We still get cake eventually, right?" I smiled at my phone, relieved by how easy he made it. That Sunday, Dad squeezed my shoulder and told everyone I had always been the considerate one. Tessa kissed my cheek. Mom served me the biggest slice of pie. And because everybody was happy with me, I mistook it for being loved. The considerate one spent the next week stepping over Tessa's belongings. She left socks beneath the coffee table, a flat iron plugged in beside the toaster, and 6 different skincare products lined along our bathroom sink. The blue bin stayed in the hallway because every time I asked where she wanted it, she said she needed to go through it first. Jonah started putting his keys on top of the lid. "That's passive-aggressive," I told him. "It's furniture now. It's not furniture. It's been here longer than the side table." The side table had arrived 2 days earlier in a box that remained unopened beside the couch. "That's different. It has fewer towels." He said it lightly, but on Tessa's 12th night with us, I woke at 2 in the morning and found him asleep on the couch. At first, I thought I had pushed him out of bed. I was a violent sleeper. I once kicked him hard enough to leave a bruise and then got mad at him for waking me to report it. But his pillow was under his head, and he had brought the quilt from the foot of our bed. I touched his shoulder. "Hey," he opened one eye. "Why are you out here?" "You were snoring." "I don't snore. That's why I left. I was scared." I crouched beside the couch. "Jonah." He rubbed his face. Tessa was crying. I could hear her through the wall. Our guest room shared a wall with our bedroom. I had heard her too, a low, broken sound that stopped whenever pipes moved or a floorboard creaked. "She doesn't want me to know," I said. I figured. "So you came out here?" I didn't know if she'd be more embarrassed knowing I could hear. This was exactly the kind of thing Jonah did that made people call him good. He made room without announcing what it cost him. Usually I love that about him. That night, it made me uneasy. "You can come back to bed." "I'm okay. This couch is 6 feet long. I'm 5'11". You claim 6 feet on dating forms. We're engaged. You can't use that against me now." I sat on the rug, resting my back against the couch. The television was off, but the little red standby light glowed near my knee. 17 days isn't that long, I said. "Did you count?" "No." He waited. I counted. He shifted onto his side. "I'm not asking you to throw her out." "I know. Your parents have 3 bedrooms. The 3rd one is Dad's office. Your dad sends emails from his phone. He has a printer in there." "Ah. Well, you can't displace a printer." I looked toward the hallway. "I'll talk to her. In the morning." "Obviously. And don't tell her I'm kicking her out." "You're not. I know that. I want you to know that." I turned to face him. What does that mean? It means I don't want to become the reason you tell yourself you had no choice. I should have asked what choices he thought I was making. Instead, I told him he was overthinking it and climbed back into bed alone. The next morning, Tessa came into the kitchen wearing my robe and announced that she had decided to move in with Mom and Dad. I stared at her. You did? Mom says the guest room needs paint, but I think that's her way of asking me to choose a color. Jonah looked at me over the rim of his coffee mug. I looked away. Tessa moved out that Saturday. Dad arrived with bungee cords and the optimism of a man who had forgotten what was in the car. The brass floor lamp made the trip without breaking. The blue bin went directly into my parents' guest room where it became an ottoman. Before she left, Tessa stood in our doorway and hugged Jonah. Thank you for letting me invade your life. You alphabetized our spices. They were chaos. I'm finding cumin faster. Then she hugged me and whispered, You saved me. There was no safe answer to that, so I squeezed her harder. After they drove away, Jonah and I stood in the middle of the living room. It felt enormous without her. He picked up one of the couch cushions and threw it at me. I caught it against my chest. What was that for? Nothing. I can throw things in my own home again. You could always throw things. She was emotionally delicate. You're emotionally delicate. He threw the second cushion. We ended up on the rug, breathless and laughing, the cushions scattered around us. Then Jonah rolled onto his back and said, We should go somewhere. Where? Anywhere your family isn't. That limits our options. Dad has been to most of the continental United States. Hotel. One night. No wedding talk. We're trying to save money. I will sell the decorative side table. It's still in the box. Better resale value. We booked a room 40 minutes away at a place with a heated indoor pool we never used. We ate French fries in bed, watched a home renovation show, and argued about whether anyone needed 2 kitchen islands. I didn't check my phone for almost 3 hours. When I did, I had 9 messages. 6 were from Mom. Tessa had driven past her old house and seen Evan's car in the driveway. Then she had seen another car behind it. Then she had called him. Then Mom had taken her phone away, which explained why the final 3 messages were from Tessa's email. I sat up against the pillows. Jonah paused the television. You don't have to go, he said. I didn't say I was going. You put your shoes on. I looked down. I had. She's at Mom and Dad's. So she's not alone. Mom says she's inconsolable. Your mother considers a missed appetizer inconsolable. That's not fair. No. It's accurate. I took off one shoe, then put it back on. Jonah watched without saying anything. That was worse than arguing. She asked for me. I know. What am I supposed to do? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You want the honest answer? I wouldn't have asked otherwise. Sometimes you ask because you want me to make it easier to do what you've already decided. My hand froze on the strap of my purse. That's a little harsh. I'm not trying to be harsh. We came here to get away because you wanted time together. I thought you wanted it too. I did. I do. But my sister just found out her husband is with somebody else. We don't know that. There was another car. My dentist has a car. If it's his, we have bigger problems. I almost smiled. He didn't. You can come with me, I said. To do what? Be there. For Tessa. For me. That changed his face, just slightly. He stood and picked up the remote. Okay. I should have been grateful. Instead, his agreement made me feel guilty, which made me defensive, which meant we drove to my parents' house in silence. The other car belonged to a real estate agent. Evan had decided to sell the house. Tessa was on the living room floor in front of the couch, still wearing her shoes. Mom sat beside her with a box of tissues and a mug of tea that had gone untouched. Dad was in his recliner, pretending not to search property law on his phone. They can't sell without her signature, he announced as we came in. Frank, Mom said, I'm providing information. You're providing volume. Tessa looked up at me. Her face was swollen. He didn't even tell me. I sat beside her. Jonah took the armchair across from us. Dad asked if he wanted a beer, and Jonah said yes. They disappeared into the kitchen together. He said he'd give me time, Tessa whispered. He said we didn't have to make any decisions. Mom stroked her hair. He's a coward. What if he's right? He isn't. You don't even know what I was going to say. I know enough. Tessa looked at me. What if it's really over? The question was so simple that it emptied the room. I took her hand. Then it'll hurt for a while. Mom's fingers stopped moving in Tessa's hair. I kept going, and then it'll hurt differently, and one day it won't be the first thing you think about. That's what you have? What? A greeting card? Mom said my name quietly. I could have pulled back. I usually did. Instead, I said, "No, I have the truth. I can tell you he'll come running back, but I don't know that. Neither does Mom." Tessa's hand went slack in mine. She stood and walked out of the room. Mom stared at me. Was that necessary? I felt the old reflex rise in my throat. Apology first, explanation later. Jonah returned with 2 beers and stopped when he saw my face. Dad came behind him. "What happened?" Dad asked. "Leah decided this was the time for tough love," Mom said. "I wasn't being tough. Your sister is terrified, I know." "Then why would you say that? Because she asked me." Dad sighed and handed one of the beers to Jonah. "You know how she gets when she's scared. It was not a defense of Tessa. In our family, it was closer to a weather report. You know how the roads get when it snows. You know how the basement gets when it rains. You know how Tessa gets, so adjust accordingly." Jonah didn't open his beer. She asked Leah a direct question. Mom looked at him. "This is family, Jonah." The words weren't cruel. She said them gently, like she was saving him from embarrassing himself. His thumb pressed into the bottle cap. I stood. "I'll go talk to her." Tessa was in the guest room, sitting on the floor beside the blue bin. She had painted one wall pale gray and left the other 3 the same yellow they had been since I was in college. "I'm sorry," I said. She gave a wet laugh. That was fast. "I'm not sorry for what I said. I'm sorry you're hurting. Same thing in a nicer dress." I sat across from her. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then she leaned her head against the wall. "Do you know what the worst part is?" "What?" "I would still take him back." She looked ashamed. I moved beside her and rested my shoulder against hers. "Yeah," I said. "I know." She turned her face into my neck and cried until my shirt collar was damp. On Thursday, Jonah and I finally made it to the cake tasting. The bakery owner set 6 perfect squares of cake in front of us, each labeled with a small handwritten card: lemon elderflower, chocolate espresso, almond raspberry, vanilla bean, carrot bourbon, something called champagne cloud that tasted like sweet air. Jonah took one bite of chocolate espresso and pointed his fork at it. "This one. You haven't tried the others." I respect their effort. I tasted the lemon. My phone buzzed beside my plate. Mom. Tessa signed the listing papers. Very bad day. I turned the phone face down. Jonah noticed. He didn't say anything, and for 10 whole minutes, we were just 2 people choosing cake. Then the bakery owner asked whether the maid of honor had any dietary restrictions. I said no. Jonah said, "Emotional gluten." The owner blinked. I laughed so hard I nearly inhaled raspberry filling. We chose chocolate espresso with vanilla for the older relatives who considered flavor a kind of aggression. On Sunday, I brought the sample box to my parents' house. Tessa took one bite, smiled bravely, and said it was delicious. Dad ate 2 pieces. Mom wrapped the last one for Tessa before anyone else could reach it. Dinner was almost normal until Dad asked how many guests we expected. 142 accepted so far, I said. Tessa set down her fork. Mom glanced at her. Dad cleared his throat. "Maybe wedding talk isn't great at the table right now." I looked at him. "You asked." "I know." "That's on me." "It's okay," Tessa said, in the voice she used when it was absolutely not okay. I folded my napkin beside my plate. Dad watched me do it. "Leah," he said, "have you and Jonah talked at all about moving the date?" Jonah's chair creaked beside me. Tessa stared at her plate. Mom looked at Dad as if he had skipped a line they had practiced. "Moving it where?" I asked. Later. I understood that part. Dad put both hands flat on the table. 6 months, a year maybe. A year? It's just a date, Leah. Jonah's knee moved away from mine beneath the table. Our wedding date was August 17th. Jonah had chosen it because his parents had married on August 17th, and I had loved that he was sentimental enough to care while pretending he liked the available catering package. It's not just a date, I said. No, of course not. I'm saying the date isn't the marriage. Frank? Mom murmured. What? I'm trying to be reasonable. Tessa shook her head. Dad, stop. He turned to her. You've barely eaten all week. That doesn't mean she has to move her wedding. Thank you, I said. Tessa's mouth tightened. It was a tiny mistake, thanking her too quickly. I had made her position visible. Now everyone could measure what it cost her. Dad rubbed his thumb against a water ring on the table. Nobody's saying you can't get married. Jonah spoke for the first time. That is generally what postponing a wedding means. I'm talking about the ceremony. The ceremony where we get married, you know what I mean? I'm trying to. Mom reached for her water. It's not forever. No, I said. It's 1 year. Possibly less. We have contracts, people booked flights. Dad waved that away. I'll cover the deposits. The room went quiet. He said it like he was offering to pay for a broken window. You'll cover them, I repeated. If that's what's keeping you from considering it. What do you think is keeping me from considering it? His face changed. Not much. Just enough that I knew he had expected me to be easier. Your sister is losing her marriage, he said. You're planning a celebration of yours. Every dress fitting, every shower, every conversation about centerpieces. We don't have centerpieces, Jonah said. Dad looked at him. We're doing candles, Jonah added. I touched his wrist under the table. I couldn't tell whether I wanted him to stop or needed to know he was there. Dad leaned back. Fine. Candles. The point is, Tessa has to live inside all of this while her own life is falling apart. Tessa pushed her chair back. Can everyone stop talking about me like I died? Mom reached for her. Honey, no, this is humiliating. She walked out, leaving her plate almost untouched. Mom watched her go, then turned to me with an expression that made the sequence of events my fault. I hope you're happy, she said. Jonah's hand went still beneath mine. Dad closed his eyes. Denise. What? She got her answer. I didn't ask for this conversation, I said. Neither did Tessa. Actually, Dad asked. Leah. Dad's voice had a warning in it now. Enough. That word did something to me. Not enough pressure on Tessa. Not enough rewriting my wedding around her grief. Enough from me because I had answered a question without making my answer comfortable. No, I said. Dad blinked. Excuse me? No, we are not moving the wedding. Mom made a small sound of disbelief. I looked at Dad. Keep the deposit money. The date stays. Jonah's fingers closed around mine. Dad nodded once, slowly. All right. It was the way he said it when a salesperson refused a reasonable offer. Mom stood to clear the plates even though 2 people were still eating. She stacked mine beneath hers, my fork sliding into gravy. Mom. What? I wasn't finished. Oh. She set my plate back down. Sorry. Gravy streaked the underside. Nobody spoke while she carried the other dishes into the kitchen. We left 10 minutes later with our sample box, now empty except for a smear of chocolate frosting and one of Dad's used napkins. In the car, Jonah buckled his seatbelt and sat with both hands on his thighs. I started the engine. He didn't say anything. Go ahead, I told him. Where? Say it. I don't know what you think I'm going to say, that they're insane, that I should have said more, that we're never coming back. I wasn't going to say any of that. I backed out too fast and bumped over the curb at the end of the driveway. You got 1 wheel, he said. I know. You usually get 2. I shot him a look. He turned toward the window, but I saw his mouth move. Are you laughing? A little. My father just offered to buy our wedding date. I know. My mother took my plate. She gave it back, with gravy underneath. That was hostile. I laughed, then immediately started crying. It came on so abruptly I had to pull over near the entrance to their subdivision. I parked beneath a streetlight and pressed the heels of my hands against my eyes. Jonah unbuckled his seatbelt. "I'm fine." "Sure, I am. Then I'll sit over here and admire how fine you are." He waited until I lowered my hands, then wiped beneath my left eye with his thumb. "I didn't think he'd ask," I said. "I know. I thought maybe Mom would. She says things when she's anxious. But Dad doesn't ask for something unless he already thinks it's the sensible thing." Jonah looked back toward my parents' street. "He thinks it's sensible because you're the one paying for it. He offered to pay." "That's not what I meant." I knew. I put the car in drive. Halfway home, my phone rang through the speakers. Tessa's name appeared on the dashboard. I almost let it go. Jonah touched the decline button, then stopped before pressing it. "My choice." I answered. "Hey, are you alone?" Tessa asked. Jonah looked out his window. "No." "Oh, you're on speaker." "Hi, Jonah." "Hi." There was a pause. "I'm sorry about dinner," she said. "I had no idea Dad was going to do that. I believe you." Jonah glanced at me. Tessa exhaled. "I told him it was a terrible idea." "You did. I don't want you to move the wedding." Something tight inside me loosened. "Thank you. I mean, I'm not going to pretend it's easy." The tightness returned, but differently. You don't have to pretend, because it is hard, Leah. Mom showed me the invitation list yesterday because she wanted help with addresses, and I saw Evan's aunt and uncle. They're my friends, too. I know. I'm just explaining. Do you want me to uninvite them? No. Her answer came quickly enough to sound noble. I would never ask that. I looked at Jonah. His face gave me nothing. Tessa went on. "I want to be there for you. I want to do maid of honor things. I've been so wrapped up in my own mess that I've been useless. You addressed 90 invitations, 87. 3 were your handwriting. Still, when's your next dress appointment? Saturday. I'm coming. You don't have to. I want to." Her voice softened. "Please let me do this right." I swallowed. "Okay." After we hung up, Jonah changed the radio station. "What?" I asked. "Nothing." You made a face. I have a face. You have several. That was the one where you're trying not to say something. He watched the road ahead. She said she wouldn't ask you to uninvite them. She won't. She did ask? No. She made sure you knew how hard it would be, then said she'd never ask. That's not asking. Okay, you don't believe her. I believe she doesn't want to hear herself ask. I gripped the steering wheel. She defended us tonight. She did. She's trying, I know. You could sound happier about it. He turned to me. "Do you need me to be happy that your sister doesn't want us to cancel our wedding?" When he put it that way, it sounded ridiculous. That's not what I said. No, it isn't. He turned the radio up 1 notch, and the conversation disappeared without ending. Saturday morning, Tessa arrived at the bridal shop carrying iced coffees for all 3 of us. She remembered my order and got Mom's wrong, which Mom pretended not to notice. The shop was narrow and bright, with dresses hanging in clear garment bags along both walls. A consultant named April led us toward 3 upholstered chairs outside the fitting room. Tessa grabbed my hand before I went behind the curtain. "This is going to be good," she said. She meant it. The first dress made me look like a lampshade. The second had sleeves so tight April had to rescue me when my elbow got stuck halfway through. Tessa laughed until coffee came out her nose. Mom handed her tissues. "Not on the dresses. I'm choking, and you're worried about inventory. We can't afford inventory." The third dress was simple, with a square neckline and a long, clean skirt. I stepped onto the little platform, looked into the mirror, and stopped recognizing the woman looking back. Not because I looked transformed, because I looked exactly like myself, only certain. Mom's eyes filled. "Oh, Leah." Tessa stood. She came behind me and adjusted one strap, then met my eyes in the mirror. "That's it," she said. "You think?" "I know." April brought a veil and tucked it into my hair. Mom started crying harder. Tessa smiled at me, but her chin trembled. I turned. Are you okay? Fine. Mom touched her arm. Honey? I said I'm fine. April stepped away, suddenly fascinated by a rack of belts. Tessa wiped under one eye. It's just stupid. It's not stupid, Mom said. Tessa looked at the veil. Evan cried when I wore mine. Nobody moved. He cried before he even saw me. He was standing at the end of the aisle with his face all red, and I thought that meant something. It did mean something then, I said. How do you know? I don't. She covered her mouth. Mom rose and pulled her into a hug. I stayed on the platform in my wedding dress while my mother held my sister 3 feet away. April approached quietly. We should get you out of this before the alterations appointment. Right. She helped me step down. The dress had 12 covered buttons along the back. April undid them one by one while Mom murmured to Tessa, and Tessa apologized for ruining everything. You didn't. I called through the curtain. I changed into my jeans, paid the alterations deposit, and found them sitting together when I came out. Tessa's eyes were dry again. She stood and hugged me. You looked beautiful. Thank you. I'm so sorry. It's okay. Mom watched my face carefully until I smiled. Then she smiled too. We went to lunch, where Tessa insisted on paying and ordered a bottle of champagne. She toasted me with a speech so affectionate, the server wiping the next table got misty-eyed. For an hour, I had my mother and my sister back. That evening, Mom posted 3 photographs from the appointment. One showed the coffee cups. One showed all 3 of us outside the shop. The last showed Mom and Tessa at lunch, their heads tilted together over 2 champagne glasses. There were no photographs of me in the dress because Jonah couldn't see it. I knew that. Still, when Dad commented, "My beautiful girls," I stared at the picture longer than I should have. The following Sunday, I skipped dinner. Dad called at 7:15. Your mother made pot roast. I know. She thinks you're upset. I have wedding work. You didn't have wedding work last Sunday? I tucked the phone between my shoulder and ear while sealing place cards. Last Sunday, I was told not to discuss it. Nobody said you can't discuss it. You asked me to move it because discussing it was hurting Tessa. That's not what I said. It's close. He sighed. Don't punish your mother. I'm not punishing anyone. You're withdrawing. I missed one dinner. In this family, we show up. I pressed the envelope flap until glue stuck to my fingertip. I've noticed, I said. I'm just starting to wonder who I'm showing up as. Dad was quiet long enough that I checked the screen to see if the call had dropped. Then he said, That sounds like something Jonah would say. The place card in my hand bent down the middle. What does? This business about who you are in the family. It sounds like something I said because I just said it. I'm not criticizing him. You brought him up. I'm saying you never talked this way before. I looked across the dining table. Jonah sat at the far end with a roll of double-sided tape around his wrist like a bracelet, lining up names alphabetically. Maybe Dad was right. I hadn't talked this way before. That didn't make the words Jonah's. Pot roast next week, Dad said, softening. No wedding interrogation. Will there be non-wedding interrogation? I can't promise. Your mother has concerns about your iron intake. I'm 34. Your blood respects age? I smiled despite myself. Dad heard it. There she is. The warmth of that nearly undid me. He could reach through one stupid sentence and pull me back into place. I'll see, I said. Sunday at 6, I said, I'll see. 6:15 if you're making an entrance. He hung up. Jonah kept sorting. I set the bent place card aside. Did you hear that? Most of it. He thinks you're putting ideas in my head. Jonah slid a card into the D pile. Do I get credit for the good ones too? I told him I said it. Okay, you could be a little more offended. I'm tired, Leah. The room was covered in cream paper. Place cards, envelopes, menu samples, a seating chart printed across 4 taped-together pages. I had spent weeks hiding wedding talk from my family, only to come home and let it spread over every flat surface we owned. I'll finish these, I said. I'm helping. You just said you're tired. I can be tired alphabetically. I watched his hands. He had a small cut across one knuckle from opening the side table box that morning. The table was finally assembled beside the couch. The blue bin had left a pale rectangular mark on the hallway rug that no amount of vacuuming seemed to lift. "Do you think I talk differently now?" I asked. "Yes." My stomach tightened. He looked up. "I think you talk more." That should have felt like support. Instead, it felt like evidence. Dad picked me up the next Saturday at 8:30 for a hardware store run. He did not ask if I wanted to go. At 8:12, he texted, "Need anchors." At 8:20, he texted, "And maybe breakfast." At 8:28, he pulled up outside our building and tapped the horn twice. I came down carrying coffee. He took his cup, read the label, and frowned. "Oat milk? It's yours." What did I do? "You said your stomach hurt last time." My stomach was processing. Process this. He drank it suspiciously while I climbed into the truck. We needed wall anchors because Mom had bought floating shelves for the guest room. Tessa had painted the remaining 3 walls gray, and the blue bin had moved into the closet, which Dad considered progress worthy of structural upgrades. At the store, he spent 15 minutes comparing 2 nearly identical packages. "These hold 75 pounds, he said. "What is she putting on the shelves?" "Books. She owns 4 books. She may expand. She's been reading the same celebrity memoir since Christmas. She reads emotionally." I laughed. Dad dropped the anchors into the cart and bumped my shoulder with his. For an hour, we were ourselves. We argued about drill bits, ate bad breakfast sandwiches from the garden center kiosk, and watched a man attempt to fit a patio umbrella into a compact car. Then, in the parking lot, Dad rested both forearms on the cart handle. "Tessa says Jonah doesn't like her." There it was. He likes her. He has a funny way of showing it. He let her live with us. He was polite. That's usually how he shows he likes people. Dad pushed the cart toward his truck. "She feels judged." "By him? By both of you?" I stopped walking. I spent 17 nights listening to her cry through a wall. "I know what you've done. Do you?" He turned. For a moment, he looked hurt, and I regretted the question. Then he said, "Your sister knows this wedding is happening. She's trying to accept that. You don't have to make every part of it so visible. I'm not posting anything. Your mother did. So talk to Mom." I did. The cart rolled slightly. Dad caught it before it hit a parked car. "Maybe keep the wedding things separate for a while," he said. "Don't bring invitations to the house. Don't discuss the honeymoon. Give Tessa some room. She has an entire guest room. Don't be smart." The old warning sharpened his voice. I looked at the cup of oat milk coffee in his holder, half finished. "How much room does she need?" "As much as we can give her. And if that leaves none for me?" "You have Jonah." He said it like an answer. Maybe it was one. The bridal shower was held at a small wine bar owned by Mom's friend Marcy. Tessa planned most of it. She chose the food, talked Mom out of making everyone play a quiz about Jonah's habits, and arranged white grocery store flowers in mismatched glass bottles. When I arrived, she met me at the door wearing a dark green dress and the earrings I'd given her for her 40th birthday 2 years early because she had found them in my closet and loved them. "You look pretty," I said. "I know. We can't both be modest today." She kissed my cheek and led me inside. The room glowed with candles and late afternoon light. There were 30 women, all adults, all holding wine. No toilet paper dresses, no games involving gum, just food, gifts, and people I liked. It was exactly what I wanted. Tessa had even made place cards with a tiny handwritten memory beneath each name. Under mine, she had written, "You made me go back for the blue bin." I found her across the room and touched my heart. She rolled her eyes but smiled. For most of the afternoon, she was wonderful. When Mom tried to refill my plate for the 3rd time, Tessa intercepted her with a cheese board. When Aunt Carol told a 14-minute story about a cruise ship plumbing failure, Tessa rescued the table by asking if anyone needed more wine. She kept a list of gifts and made sure I ate between conversations. Then Claudia arrived. Claudia was Evan's aunt, but she had also been my friend for years. She was loud, divorced, and always smelled faintly of expensive hand cream. She came straight to me with a gift bag and wrapped me in a hug. Sorry I'm late. They closed the interstate because a mattress fell off a truck. Was it your mattress? Not this time. Over her shoulder, I saw Tessa. She didn't look angry. She looked braced. Claudia approached her slowly. Hi, sweetheart. Tessa nodded. Hi. I wasn't sure if I should come. Why wouldn't you? The brightness in Tessa's voice made Mom turn from across the room. Claudia touched her arm. I just want you to know I love you. Whatever happens with you and Evan, whatever happens. I didn't mean, what did he tell you? The room didn't go silent all at once. It thinned around them, one conversation at a time. Claudia looked at me. That was a mistake. Tessa saw it. What did he tell you? She asked again. Nothing specific. Then why would you say it like that? I was trying to be kind by showing up at my sister's bridal shower to give condolences on my marriage? Tessa, Mom said. I'm not doing anything. You're raising your voice. I'm standing here while everyone waits for me to fall apart. No one had been waiting until she said it. Then we all were. She set the gift list on the nearest table and walked out. Mom started after her. I was closer. I'll go, I said. The wine bar opened onto a narrow parking lot behind a row of shops. Tessa's car sat at the far end beneath a crooked tree. She was in the driver's seat with the door open, one foot on the pavement. I crouched beside her. Did you know he talked to Claudia? She asked. No. You invited her. Yes. Her laugh had no humor in it. Of course you did. She's my friend. She was my family first. I asked if you wanted me to uninvite them. You knew I couldn't say yes. I leaned back. You said you'd never ask. I didn't. You're asking now. I'm telling you that you put me in an impossible position. So did you want her there or not? That's not the point. Then what is? She stood so suddenly I had to move aside. The point is you get to be generous because I'm the one who has to swallow it. You invite Evan's family, and if I object, I'm selfish. If I smile, I'm supportive. Either way, you get your perfect day. My perfect day? Don't. No, tell me about my perfect day, Tessa. She looked toward the wine bar windows. Shapes moved behind the glass. Everyone pretending not to look. Her anger vanished. I'm sorry, she whispered. I closed my eyes. I knew I shouldn't come. You planned the whole thing, and now everybody's talking about me because you left. I need to go home. She reached for the car door. You've been drinking. I had one glass. You're upset. I live 6 minutes away. I'll drive you. It's your shower. I looked back at the building. Mom stood just inside the rear door, watching us through the glass. I'll drive you, I said again. Tessa let me. Mom hugged me when I went inside for my purse. Thank you, she whispered. Claudia stood near the gift table, stricken. I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. I should leave. You don't have to. But by the time I returned from taking Tessa home, Claudia was gone. So were half the guests. The candles had burned low. Mom and Marcy were packing food into foil containers. My unopened gifts sat beneath the window. Jonah had arrived to help load the car. He picked up 2 bags and kissed my forehead. You okay? Fine. His eyes moved across the half-empty room. Mom hurried over. It was lovely, really lovely. Tessa just got overwhelmed. Jonah looked at me. You drove her home? She'd been drinking. So had you. I had half a glass. He carried the bags outside. At home, we stacked the gifts along the wall where the blue bin used to be. I sat on the floor and started removing tissue paper from a set of mixing bowls. Jonah stayed standing. What? I asked. Nothing. Please don't do that. Do what? Turn into a wall and make me guess what's behind it. His jaw shifted. You left your bridal shower. She was in no condition to drive. Your mother was there. Mom had been drinking too. Marcy owns the bar. She could have called a car. She's my sister. Yes. The word was flat. I set the bowl down. You don't understand. I understand exactly. No, you don't. Your family doesn't work like this. My family doesn't work like this because we don't let it. I stood. There it is. There what is? The judgment. The thing Dad was talking about. He stared at me. Your dad? He thinks you're making Tessa feel judged. I haven't said anything to Tessa. You don't have to. She can feel it. So can you, apparently. The apartment seemed suddenly too small for both of us. I'm trying to hold my family together, I said. Jonah's face changed. No, he said quietly. You're helping them hold you in place. That is not fair. Neither is asking me to smile while your wedding disappears one piece at a time. It's one afternoon. It's every afternoon. You knew who my family was. I knew who they were. I didn't know you believed surviving them was the same as loving them. I flinched. He saw it and looked sorry, but he didn't take it back. Then he said the words that split the room open. I can't marry you like this, Leah. For a second, I couldn't feel my hands. The ring on my left one seemed to weigh 5 pounds. You can't marry me. That's not what I said. It's exactly what you said. I said I can't marry you like this. Oh, good. Huge difference. It is a huge difference. I pulled the ring off. I didn't decide to do it. My fingers moved before the rest of me understood. I set it on top of the unopened mixing bowls, where it caught in a fold of white tissue paper. Jonah stared at it. That's not what I want. Then maybe don't tell your fiancé you can't marry her. I'm trying to tell my fiancé I'm scared. You don't get to scare me first. His mouth opened, then closed. I grabbed my purse from the back of a chair. Where are you going? I don't know. You've been drinking. Half a glass 4 hours ago. Stay. I'll leave. Why? It's your apartment too. Unless that's conditional now. Nothing is conditional. You just put a condition on marrying me. He ran both hands over his face. Leah, listen to the whole sentence. I did. No. You heard the part that confirmed the thing you're most afraid of, and now you're running. I stopped at the door. He spoke carefully, as if one wrong word might send me through it. I am not reconsidering marrying you. I'm not threatening to leave. I'm saying I cannot stand beside you. Promise to build a life with you, and pretend your family is allowed to take pieces out of that life whenever Tessa hurts. They're not taking pieces. You moved the cake tasting. That was one appointment. You left our hotel. She was devastated. You left your shower. She couldn't drive. You stopped talking about the wedding in front of them. You let your mother post pictures from your dress appointment where you might as well not have been there. You listen to your father call me the problem, and then you come home asking whether he's right. I defended you. To him? I didn't answer. Jonah's voice dropped. I'm not asking you to choose me over your family. I'm asking you to stop choosing their comfort over us. You think this is easy for me? No. You think I enjoy it? No. You think I don't know how ridiculous it is? I think knowing lets you feel like you've already changed something. That one landed cleanly. I gripped my purse strap until the edge dug into my palm. He glanced at the ring and the tissue paper. I want to marry you, he said. I want the marriage after the wedding, too. I want Christmas mornings and broken appliances, and you kicking me in your sleep until one of us dies. But I don't want to spend that marriage waiting for your sister's next bad day to become our emergency. So what do you want me to do? Cut them off? I have never said that. Then what? Say no and stay in the room. I laughed bitterly. You make it sound simple. No, I make it sound short. Short isn't the same as simple. The refrigerator motor clicked off. In the silence, I could hear traffic on the wet street below us. Jonah sat on the arm of the couch. If you want to leave for an hour, go. If you want me to go, I will. But put your ring back on first. I looked at him. Why? Because we're having a fight. We're not ending our engagement. Something in my chest gave way. Not relief exactly, but room for it. I crossed the apartment and picked up the ring. The tissue paper had left a faint white fiber caught under one prong. Jonah reached for my hand, then stopped before touching me. I put the ring on myself. "I need air," I said. "Okay, I'm not going to my parents." I didn't ask. I know. I walked for 40 minutes through streets I had driven 1,000 times and barely seen. The pharmacy sign buzzed blue over an empty parking lot. A man in restaurant whites smoked behind a dumpster. Somewhere above me, 2 people argued through an open window about whether somebody had fed a cat. Normal lives. Normal conflicts. Nobody lifted a glass because the cat had been fed or hadn't. When I returned, the gifts were still stacked against the wall. Jonah had moved the mixing bowls onto the counter but left everything else alone. He was in bed, awake, facing my side. I changed in the dark. "You're cold," he said when I got under the covers. "It's cold outside." Excellent explanation. I lay on my back. He lay on his. After a minute, I said, "I'm afraid if I stop being useful, they won't know what to do with me." Jonah didn't answer immediately. Then he turned toward me. "That's different from them not loving you, is it?" "Yes." "How?" "They may love you and still be terrible at it." I stared at the ceiling. "Dad and I used to go to the hardware store every Saturday," I said, "even when I was busy. He'd call and say he needed one thing, and we'd be gone all morning." Tessa never wanted to go. She hated the smell. It smells like lumber and fertilizer. She said it smelled like divorced men. That's specific. He used to let me pick the music in the truck. He taught me how to change a tire, fix a running toilet, patch drywall. He didn't treat me like I was in the way. I know he loves you. That's what makes it confusing. Jonah moved closer, but he didn't touch me until I turned onto my side. "I'm sorry I said it that way," he whispered. "I'm sorry I took off the ring. Please don't do that again. Please don't say you can't marry me again. Deal." His forehead rested against mine. "What if we eloped?" I asked. He went still. "I'm not saying we should." "Okay, I'm asking what you'd think. I think we could be married by Tuesday. That's romantic." "Wednesday, then. I'll buy a shirt." I smiled. Then he said, "I'd also think your family chased you out of your own wedding." The smile faded. "I want the wedding," I admitted. "I know. I want Dad to walk me down the aisle. I know. I want Mom to cry before I even put the dress on. I want Tessa beside me. I know." He said it without judgment, which was worse and better than anything else. "I'm not ready to give that up." "Then don't." What if they keep making it impossible? Jonah reached between us and took my left hand. Then we decide what happens together. The next morning, we wrote 3 rules on the back of a takeout menu. We would not change the wedding date. We would not cancel plans with each other unless there was an actual emergency. We would not make decisions about the wedding while talking to my family. If somebody asked for a change, we would say we needed time and discuss it together. Jonah added a 4th. Nobody gets to call a fountain an emergency. I taped the menu inside a kitchen cabinet. It felt dramatic and a little stupid. It also felt necessary. Mom called before noon. "How's Tessa?" I asked. Embarrassed. "She didn't do anything she can't recover from. She says she ruined your shower. She left. I followed her. That was my choice." Mom paused. "She thinks Jonah is angry with her. Why? He was very quiet when he picked up the gifts. He was carrying boxes. You know what I mean?" I opened the cabinet and looked at the menu. "No, Mom, I don't." Another pause. "Is everything okay between you two?" The question was soft, almost casual. "Yes." "Tessa worries he resents how close you are. Tessa lived with us for more than 2 weeks. That doesn't mean it was easy. It wasn't easy. He still did it." "I'm not attacking him. You keep saying that right before you say something about him." Mom sighed. "I just don't want you isolating yourself because he's uncomfortable with our family." I almost laughed. Instead, I said, "Jonah doesn't make my decisions. Of course not. And neither does Tessa." The silence hardened. "I have to go," Mom said. "Mom, we'll see you Sunday." She hung up. At Sunday dinner, Mom served pot roast as promised. No one mentioned the wedding for the first 20 minutes. Dad asked Jonah about work. Tessa told a story about trying to assemble the floating shelves alone and drilling 4 holes into the wrong wall. Mom laughed too loudly at everything. I had just begun to relax when Tessa put down her wine glass. "I owe everyone an apology for the shower." "You don't," Mom said immediately. "Yes, I do." She looked at me. "I made it about me." I waited. I didn't mean to. Claudia caught me off guard. "I know. She texted me." "What did she say?" "She apologized." "I apologized. We're okay." Relief moved around the table. Tessa continued. "I also told her I need some distance from Evan's family right now." The relief stopped before it reached me. "That makes sense," Dad said. Tessa folded and unfolded her napkin. She said she understood. I knew what was coming. I could see Mom preparing not to look at me. Tessa smiled faintly. So it would probably be easier for everybody if Claudia and Rick didn't come to the wedding. There it was, not a demand, a solution. Jonah's hand found my knee under the table. Dad looked at me. They'll understand. I could feel the takeout menu behind the cabinet door from 3 miles away. "I'll talk to Jonah," I said. Tessa's face tightened. "Why do you have to talk to Jonah? They're your guests. Because it's our wedding." "Right. Of course." The hurt in her voice was almost perfect. Dad reached for his water. "It doesn't need to become a federal case." "I didn't say no. You didn't say yes." I looked at Tessa. "Do you want them uninvited?" She stared back at me. For once, I didn't rescue her from the direct question. "Yes," she said. The word seemed to surprise all of us. Tessa swallowed. "I do." I nodded. "Okay," I said. "Then I'll give you my answer tomorrow." Jonah waited until we were 3 blocks away before asking, "What do you want?" I kept my eyes on the road. "I want Claudia and Rick at the wedding." "Okay. I also want Tessa not to be miserable. Those aren't necessarily opposite things. They are to her. Right now." I stopped at a red light. "If we say no, Dad's going to make it about you. He already does. Doesn't that bother you?" "Yes." He said it without hesitation. I turned toward him. Jonah looked tired. "It bothers me that he thinks I'm taking you away. It bothers me more that part of you thinks protecting me means giving him what he wants." The light changed. A car honked behind us. I drove. At home, I opened the cabinet and read our rules, while Jonah put leftovers in the refrigerator. "We don't have a rule for saying no," I said. "We assumed English." "I'm serious. So am I." He came up behind me, looked over my shoulder, and tapped the menu. "You already know the answer. I know our answer. Do you have a different one?" "No." "Then that's the answer." I called Tessa the next morning from my parked car before work. She picked up on the first ring. "Hey." Neither of us mentioned why I was calling. I watched a woman in scrubs struggle with an umbrella near the building entrance. The wind flipped it inside out, and she just kept walking with it above her head like she had decided not to notice. "Jonah and I talked," I said. "Okay? We're not uninviting Claudia and Rick." Tessa was silent. "They're my friends," I continued. "They haven't done anything to me. Claudia apologized to you, and you said you were okay. I said we were okay. That doesn't mean I want to watch her celebrate your marriage while mine is ending. I understand. Do you?" "Yes." She laughed once. "You always say that right before you do whatever you wanted." I gripped the phone. "I'm allowed to understand you and still say no. That sounds like Jonah." There it was again. "No," I said. "It sounds like me." "Fine. If you need distance from them at the wedding, we can seat you separately. You won't have to speak to them. As your maid of honor, I'm supposed to spend the day protecting myself from your guest list. I'm trying to offer options. I didn't ask for options. I asked my sister to care." The umbrella woman reached the door. A man held it open for her, and the broken umbrella caught on the frame. "I do care," I said. "The answer is still no." Tessa inhaled sharply. I waited for the accusation, the crying, the silence that would have to be repaired. Instead, she said, "Then I guess I know where I rank." Every nerve in my body reached for her. I forced myself to stay still. "This isn't a ranking. It always is when I lose." She hung up. I sat in the car for another minute. Then I went to work. Dad called at 10:30. I let it ring. He called again at lunch. I texted, "Busy? We'll call tonight?" He replied, "Your sister is devastated." I put my phone in a drawer. At 5:15, there were 3 messages from Mom, 2 from Dad and 1 from Tessa. Tessa's said, "I'm not coming Sunday. Don't worry. You won't have to choose." I showed Jonah while he chopped onions for dinner. He read it, handed the phone back, and kept chopping. "That's all?" I asked. "What do you want me to say?" "I don't know. Her decision isn't your emergency. She's threatening not to come to dinner. She's informing you she's not coming to dinner. You know it's meant to make me feel guilty. Is it working?" "Yes." He scraped the onions into a pan. "Then maybe don't reward good aim." Dad answered my call with, "This isn't how family treats each other. I hadn't even said hello. Good evening to you too. You excluded your sister from her own wedding shower. She left. And now you're choosing Evan's relatives over her. I'm not choosing anyone over anyone. You keep saying that as though saying it makes it true." I walked into the bedroom and shut the door. Claudia and Rick are invited. Tessa doesn't get to edit our guest list based on who Evan is related to. They're his family. They're also people I've known for 12 years. Tessa has been your sister for 36, 38. Dad went quiet. I closed my eyes. "Tessa is 38, I said. She turned 40 in 2 years when I gave her the earrings. That was a joke. I know how old my daughter is. Do you? That's cheap." It was. "I'm sorry." He sighed into the phone. For a few seconds, I could picture him in his recliner, glasses low on his nose, one ankle crossed over the other. He would be rubbing the seam of the armrest with his thumb. "I don't want us doing this," he said. "Neither do I. Then fix it." The words were so automatic he seemed not to hear them. "Why me?" "Because she can't right now. When can she? You know what she's going through." "Yes, I do. I've heard it every day for 3 months." "That's not fair." "I'm not trying to be fair. I'm asking when Tessa becomes responsible for how she treats me. She asked you for one thing. She has asked me for dozens of things, most of them without using a question mark." Dad's voice cooled. "Jonah is keeping score." "No, I am." He didn't answer. It occurred to me that he had never imagined I had a ledger. "Claudia and Rick are coming," I said. "Tessa is welcome. I love her. I'm done discussing it." Dad hung up before I could. On Sunday, Jonah and I went to a movie instead of dinner. I turned off my phone. Halfway through, during a scene where 2 spies were fighting on top of a train, Jonah leaned over and whispered, "Do you know what's happening?" "No, me neither." We stayed anyway. Afterward, we ate burgers at a place near the theater. No one called. No one cried. No one asked us to move August 17th. I felt guilty the entire time. I also had fun. Both things fit. Tessa skipped 2 Sunday dinners, then appeared at our apartment on a Wednesday carrying a garment bag. "I brought my dress," she said. I stepped aside. Her maid of honor dress was dark blue, sleeveless, and simple. She had chosen it herself before Evan left. It still had the tags attached. I thought we could check the length with the shoes. I looked at her face for a clue. She held up a small paper bag. I also brought wine, not as leverage. Mostly. Jonah was at the gym. I texted him that she was there, then helped her unzip the garment bag. The dress fit perfectly, except for the straps, which gaped slightly at the shoulders. Tessa stood on a kitchen chair while I pinned the hem. "If I fall," she said, "tell everyone I died supporting your marriage." "I'll tell them you died on a chair from Target. Don't cheapen me." I moved a pin. "How's the distance from Claudia?" "Fine." "You talked?" "No." "Okay." She looked down at me. I was unfair. I waited. "I still hate that they're coming. You're allowed, I know." That phrase sounded different in her voice. She stepped off the chair and smoothed the skirt. "I don't want to fight anymore," she said. "Neither do I. Can we just be sisters?" I wanted to ask what that meant. Instead, I hugged her. For the next few weeks, we almost managed it. Tessa came to the menu tasting and declared the chicken aggressively beige, which convinced us to choose the short ribs. She took my bouquet inspiration pictures to a florist and returned with cheaper options. When Mom suggested removing the couple's dance so Tessa wouldn't be alone, Tessa told her not everything needed to be redesigned around her. We removed it anyway. Jonah and I had never cared about the dance. That mattered. At least I told myself it did. One evening, Tessa called and asked if I could meet her at the house she had shared with Evan. The sale was moving forward and she needed to collect the last things from the attic before the final walkthrough. Evan wasn't there. The rooms were almost empty. Without furniture, every sound echoed. Pale rectangles marked the walls where photographs had hung. In the dining room, 4 dents remained in the carpet where their table used to stand. Tessa found their wedding album in a plastic tub and sat down on the attic floor. I thought Mom had this. She probably made a copy. Of course she did. Dust floated through a stripe of late sunlight. I sat beside her. She opened the album to a photograph of herself and Evan beneath a spray of white flowers. They looked young, although they hadn't been. Tessa had been 29. Evan was 31. "I look so sure," she said. "You were. Were you sure at your dress appointment?" "Yes." She turned the page. "Even after your fight with Jonah?" My body went still. What fight? Mom said you two had words after the shower. Mom wasn't there. She said he was upset. He was. About me? About everything. Tessa closed the album. "Are you sure he wants the wedding?" "Yes." "Are you sure you do?" I looked around the empty attic. A flattened cardboard box leaned against the wall. Someone had written Tessa, keep across it in black marker. "I want Jonah," I said. "That's not what I asked. I hate what the wedding has become." Her expression softened. "I'm sorry. I spend all day thinking about who can sit near whom and what I'm allowed to mention at dinner. Dad tried to pay me to postpone. Mom thinks Jonah is isolating me. You think I'm choosing Claudia over you. I can't make one decision without it turning into a loyalty test. You could still stop." My heart kicked. "Stop what?" "The wedding." "No. I'm not telling you to. I'm saying you're allowed. I don't want to stop marrying Jonah. But the ceremony." I looked down at my ring. "There are days I wish we'd eloped," I admitted. "There are days I think this whole thing was a mistake." Tessa's eyes filled. She reached for my hand. "Then don't let anyone force you through it." I squeezed her fingers. "I'm not being forced." "Okay, I'm serious. I heard you." The attic had gone dim around us. Downstairs, the empty house settled with a long wooden creak. "Don't tell Mom what I said," I added. Tessa leaned her head against my shoulder. "I won't," she promised. She kept that promise for 23 days. During those 23 days, Dad came to our apartment twice to practice the father-daughter dance. He had chosen the Way You Look Tonight, which surprised me. Dad's musical taste generally stopped around men named Hank, but he claimed Sinatra had structural integrity. The first practice lasted 11 seconds. Dad stepped on my foot, apologized, then stepped on the same foot again. "You're leading with your entire body," I told him. "That's how leading works. You're moving me like a refrigerator. Refrigerators don't complain." Jonah stood by the kitchen counter eating pretzels and pretending not to film us. "Put the phone down," Dad said. "I'm checking email. Your email doesn't need video. I have modern email." Dad pointed at him. "You're not too old to be removed from this wedding." The joke settled strangely. Jonah put the phone away. Dad took my hand again. His palm was dry and warm, the same hand that had steadied the back of my bicycle, shown me where to place a wrench, passed me screws one at a time while I stood on a ladder. "Left. Together. Right," I said. "I know how to dance. You just tried to enter my rib cage. Stop talking and let me concentrate." We made it through half the song. When it ended, Dad kissed my forehead. "There," he said. "You'll remember that when your feet recover." I hugged him. He held on longer than I expected. "I don't want this wedding coming between us," he said quietly. "It isn't." "You know what I mean." I did. The wedding was not a thing between us. It was a light switched on in a room we had always kept dim. I pulled back. "Then don't let it." Dad looked at me for a second, almost as if he understood. Then he picked up the bowl of pretzels and asked Jonah why we had purchased a brand with no salt. By the final week, our apartment looked like a shipping department run by anxious florists. Boxes of candles filled the hallway. The place cards were tied in stacks. Tessa had taken the maid of honor dress for alterations and sent me a photograph from the tailor with the caption, "I remain heroic." Mom had stopped asking us to change things. Instead, she made worried observations. The welcome dinner might be difficult for Tessa. The photographer should avoid too many couple poses before the ceremony. Maybe the DJ could play fewer love songs during dinner. "What songs does she think weddings have?" Jonah asked. "Shipping forecasts?" We were assembling small paper bags with chocolate-covered pretzels for the hotel guests. I didn't agree to anything. "You told her you'd mention it to the DJ. That's not agreeing." "You mentioned it?" "No." He nodded. "Growth." I threw a pretzel at him. He caught it in his mouth, which was irritatingly impressive. The welcome dinner was scheduled for Friday evening in the private room of Bellwether House, the same inn where the ceremony and reception would be held the following afternoon. Mom and Dad had offered to host it before Evan left. After he did, Mom quietly changed the printed menus from the Reeds and Mercers to Leah and Jonah, as though family names themselves had become too romantic. I noticed, but I didn't ask her to change them back. 2 days before the wedding, I was at work trying to finish 3 weeks of tasks in one afternoon when Mom called. I declined it. She called again. Then Dad called. I stepped into an empty conference room and answered. "What happened?" Dad's voice was clipped. "Can you come by?" "I'm working. This can't wait. Is someone hurt?" "No." "Then it can wait until 6. Leah. The warning was there, but something else sat beneath it. Fear, maybe. I looked through the glass wall at my desk. "I'll come after work. Alone." My stomach tightened. Why? "We need to talk as a family. Jonah is my family. This is about Jonah." I hung up. For the next hour, I made mistakes. I attached the wrong file to an email, forgot a colleague's name while she was standing in front of me, and read the same sentence 6 times without understanding it. Jonah offered to come with me. I told him I wanted to hear what they would say if he wasn't in the room. "Call me," he said. "I will. Before you agree to anything." I opened the kitchen cabinet. The takeout menu was still taped inside. I know. Mom's car was in the driveway when I arrived. So was Tessa's. Dad opened the door before I knocked. The living room had been arranged like an intervention. Dad sat in his recliner. Mom and Tessa were on the couch. The coffee table held 4 glasses of water no one had touched. Tessa's eyes were red. I stayed standing. What happened? Mom patted the cushion beside her. "Sit down." "I'm good." Dad gestured toward the armchair. I sat because standing had begun to feel theatrical. Tessa twisted a tissue between her fingers. Mom took a breath. "Your sister is worried about you." I looked at Tessa. She didn't meet my eyes. "What did you tell them?" "Leah," Mom said, "this isn't an attack." "What did she tell you?" Dad leaned forward. "She told us about the problems you and Jonah are having." I felt the room narrow. "We're not having problems. Tessa says he threatened not to marry you. He did not. She said after the shower, he said he couldn't marry me while pretending the way this family treats me is normal." Dad's jaw tightened. "What exactly does that mean?" "It means exactly what I said." Mom looked stricken. "You told Tessa the wedding was a mistake." I turned toward my sister. Her face folded. "I was scared for you," she said. "You promised. I didn't tell them everything. You told them enough to make it sound like I don't want to get married. You said there were days you wished you had eloped. You said the whole thing was a mistake." "I said this thing was a mistake." I gestured around the room. "This. Spending every decision trying to make sure you don't hurt." Tessa flinched. Mom reached for her hand. The movement was so instinctive she seemed not to know she had done it. "I asked if you wanted the ceremony," Tessa said. "You wouldn't answer." I answered. "I said I wanted Jonah. That's not the same. It is to me." Dad stood. "Then why are we finding out 48 hours before the wedding that he told you he couldn't marry you? You're finding out because Tessa repeated a private conversation after promising she wouldn't. She was trying to protect you. From what?" Dad looked toward the window. Mom spoke carefully. "From making a permanent decision because you're too embarrassed to stop." I laughed. It sounded ugly. "You think I'm marrying Jonah because I'm embarrassed?" "I think you've worked very hard on this wedding," Mom said. "You've spent money. People are traveling. There can be a kind of momentum. Do you hear yourself? We're giving you permission." "I didn't ask for permission." "To postpone," Dad said. "Not end it. Take a breath. Let things settle." "Let what settle?" "Tessa's divorce?" The word made Tessa recoil. Dad stepped between us. "That's enough. No. You called me here because she broke a promise and turned my worst day with Jonah into a rescue mission." "It was your worst day?" Mom asked. "That is not the point. It sounds like the point." My phone buzzed in my purse. Jonah. I ignored it. Dad paced toward the fireplace and back. "You said you didn't want the ceremony." I said I hated what all of you had made it. "All of us?" "Yes." Mom's hand went to her chest. Tessa began to cry silently. I looked at each of them and understood, with a clarity that felt almost peaceful, that there was no arrangement of words that would make them see the same room I did. Dad picked up one of the water glasses but didn't drink. "Postpone tomorrow's dinner," he said. "We'll tell people there's been a family illness." "No. Take 24 hours. The wedding is happening. Leah, be sensible. I am getting married Saturday." Tessa covered her face. Dad's expression hardened. "Is this what Jonah wants? This is what I want. Then why didn't you say that to your sister?" "I did. You said you wanted him. You didn't say you wanted the wedding. Because she is my sister, and I thought I was allowed to admit that my wedding had become painful." Mom shook her head. "No one wanted that. You asked me to move it for a year. We were concerned. You erased me from my own dress appointment. That is not fair. You asked me to stop mentioning my wedding at dinner, remove dances, rearrange guests, manage songs, hide pictures. We removed one dance," Tessa said. "We?" She looked away. My phone buzzed again. I stood. Dad moved toward me. "We're not finished." "I am. You don't walk out when we're trying to help. You're not trying to help. You're trying to turn my marriage into the latest thing I have to give Tessa. Don't speak about your sister that way. How should I speak about her? Like she isn't in the room? You all seem to enjoy that." Dad's face went red. For 1 second, I thought he might shout. Instead, he said very quietly, "I am disappointed in the person you are being." That hurt more. I picked up my purse. Tessa stood. "Leah, wait." I turned to her. She wiped her cheeks. "What if you wake up Sunday and realize you made a mistake? Then it will be my mistake." Her mouth opened. I walked out. Jonah was sitting on the front steps. I stopped halfway down the path. He stood. "You weren't answering." "How long have you been here?" 5 minutes. "Did you come to get me?" "I came to be nearby. The distinction almost broke me." I reached him and he took my hand. Dad opened the front door behind us. "This is exactly what I was talking about," he said. Jonah turned. I tightened my grip. "Don't." Dad looked at our joined hands. "She can't have one conversation with her family without you appearing?" I asked him to call. "You asked me to call," Jonah said quietly. "When you didn't answer, I worried." Dad gave a humorless smile. "Of course you did." Jonah's body went still. I stepped between them. "The wedding is happening," I said. "The dinner is happening. If you come, you will not use either one to pressure us again." Mom had appeared behind Dad. Tessa stood behind her. My whole family framed in the doorway. Dad folded his arms. And if we can't agree to your terms? The answer rose before fear could stop it. Then you won't be part of the ceremony. Nobody spoke. Mom's face emptied. Tessa whispered, "You don't mean that." "I do." Dad stared at me as if I were a stranger. Jonah and I left before I could become familiar again. At home, we sat on the floor among the candle boxes and made the decision together. Dad would not walk me down the aisle unless he could support the marriage without conditions. Mom would no longer host the welcome dinner. Tessa would not stand beside me or give a speech. They could attend as guests if they came to celebrate, not negotiate. "We tell them before the dinner," Jonah said. I nodded. Friday afternoon, they met us in a small sitting room at Bellwether House. I told them, "We can't do tomorrow like this. We're changing the plan." Tessa went white. Dad said nothing. An hour later, the private dining room filled with people we loved. Jonah stood to welcome everyone. Tessa crossed the room before he finished his first sentence and reached for the microphone. "I need this," she said, closing her hand around it. Jonah didn't let go immediately. For one strange second, they both held the microphone between them while 40 people watched. "Tessa," he said, "please." Her voice broke on the word. He looked at me. I thought she was going to apologize. That was the ridiculous part. Even after the sitting room, even after she had turned my private confession into a family intervention, some part of me still expected my sister to pull us back from the edge. I nodded. Jonah released the microphone. Tessa walked to the center of the room. The speakers gave a sharp squeal, and several people winced. Mom sat rigid beside Dad. Aunt Carol lowered a buttered roll halfway to her plate. "I know this isn't how Leah wanted tonight to go," Tessa said. Her eyes found mine. But she made a brave decision. The wedding is off. The sentence seemed to leave the room before anyone understood it. It passed through the open doors, into the inn, out across the lawn where the ceremony chairs had already been arranged in white rows. Somebody dropped a fork. I heard Claudia whisper, "What?" Tessa pressed one hand to her chest. "She needs time. We all do. This family has been through enough, and I'm proud of her for recognizing that a marriage shouldn't begin in conflict." Jonah stood beside the empty microphone stand. He didn't look surprised. That hurt too. I turned toward my parents. Mom's eyes filled with instant tears. Not confused tears, relieved ones. Dad pushed his chair back. I waited for him to ask me if it was true. He lifted his champagne. "To Leah," he said, "for remembering that no celebration is worth breaking a family." Mom raised her glass. Aunt Carol's went up slowly. 3 people at the nearest table followed, one of them smiling uncertainly as if he thought Dad was offering a normal toast. Other guests stared at their glasses. Claudia folded both hands in her lap. Tessa looked at me. Beneath the tears, beneath the performance, relief softened her entire face. She knew. Maybe she had convinced herself I would be grateful once she said the words for me. Maybe she believed a room full of people could turn her version into the truth. Maybe she simply thought I would never contradict her in public because I never had. Jonah stepped forward and took the microphone from her hand. "Actually," he said, "that's not what Leah decided." Dad's glass stopped halfway to his mouth. Jonah looked at me. Not over me, not around me, at me. I nodded once. "The wedding is tomorrow," he said. "Same time, same place. Leah has never asked to postpone it, and neither have I." A murmur moved through the room. Tessa reached for the microphone. Jonah shifted it out of range without looking at her. "What changed," he continued, "is who will have a role in the ceremony." Mom whispered my name. Jonah didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "Frank will not be walking Leah down the aisle. Denise will not be hosting this dinner. Tessa will not be standing as maid of honor or giving a speech." They were told that before our guests arrived. Dad set down his glass so hard champagne jumped over the rim. "You don't get to announce family business," he said. Jonah met his eyes. Neither does Tessa. Aunt Carol put her glass down. The others followed. Tessa stared at me. "You were canceling." "No," I said. You said you couldn't do tomorrow like this. I said we were changing the plan. You said the whole wedding was a mistake 3 weeks ago, in private, after I told you I wanted to marry Jonah." Her face reddened. "That's not how it happened." "It is." Dad stood. Enough. The word no longer stopped me. Jonah held out the microphone. I took it. My hand was trembling so badly the sound shook when I spoke. No one misunderstood me. Mom covered her mouth. I looked at the raised glasses, some still held awkwardly in midair. "You heard that my wedding was canceled, and instead of asking me, you toasted." "Leah," Dad warned. "No. You wanted it to be true. That is not fair." "Then why did you raise your glass?" He had no answer. Tessa did. "Because he wants his family back." "So do I." The microphone made my voice fill the whole room. I could hear how close I was to crying, and I hated it until I realized crying did not make the words less true. I have spent 5 months moving my wedding around Tessa's pain. I moved appointments. I stopped talking about it at family dinners. I changed dances, guests, photographs, music. I left my own shower. Every time I gave something up, all of you called me loving. The first time I said no, you called me selfish. Mom shook her head. "That isn't what happened. It is what happened to me." I looked around the room. Tomorrow is still happening. Anyone here can come if they can celebrate our marriage. If you think it should be canceled, don't come. Silence. I handed the microphone back to Jonah before my hand dropped it. Dad walked toward us. For a second, I thought he was coming to hug me. He stopped in front of Jonah. "You did this." Jonah's face stayed calm. "No." She would never humiliate her mother this way. "I'm standing right here," I said. Dad ignored me. "You've been pulling her away from us for months." "Frank," Aunt Carol said. He turned on her. "Stay out of it." She lifted her eyebrows. "You made a toast, Frank. You invited the room in." Dad looked around as if noticing the guests for the first time. His face changed. Not shame, exposure. Mom stood and took his arm. "Let's go." Tessa hadn't moved. She stared at the floor, mascara finally beginning to smudge beneath one eye. "You could have told me before tonight," she whispered. "We did," I said. "No, you told me I couldn't stand beside you. You didn't tell me you were going to announce it in front of everyone. You announced that my wedding was off. I was trying to save you." "From what?" She looked at Jonah. He didn't react. "From waking up trapped," she said. The words made several people look away. I lowered my voice. "I am not you, Tessa." She recoiled as if I had slapped her. I regretted it instantly. Not because it was untrue, because I knew exactly where to put it, so it would hurt. Tessa grabbed her purse from the back of her chair and walked out. Mom followed, then turned when she realized Dad hadn't moved. He was still looking at me. "You want me to come tomorrow and sit with the guests while some stranger walks you down the aisle? No one is walking me. I'm your father." "Yes, I have waited your whole life for that walk, so have I." His anger slipped for 1 second. There he was, the man in the truck, the man stepping on my foot in our living room, laughing with his hand around mine. I almost took everything back. Then I saw the champagne in his glass. "You raised a toast," I said. Dad looked down at it. "I thought you had come to your senses." "My senses? You were tearing this family apart over a party. It's my wedding. It's 1 day." "Then why did you need me to give it up?" His mouth tightened. Mom touched his back. "Frank." He set the glass on the nearest table and left with her. The doors swung closed behind them. For several seconds, nobody moved. Then Aunt Carol picked up the bottle of champagne from her table and refilled her glass. "Well," she said, "I'm going to need more butter." A few people laughed. It was not enough to fix anything, but it allowed everyone to breathe. The dinner resumed in pieces. Some guests came over to hug me. Others avoided my eyes. Dad's cousin Russell apologized for raising his glass and admitted he had thought Dad said something about family blessings. I heard Leah and family. he said. Then everybody was holding a drink. That's okay. It's not. I just want you to know I'm not against the wedding. Thank you. Claudia hugged me so tightly my ribs hurt. I'm coming tomorrow. Aunt Carol pressed a roll into my hand and told me I had not eaten enough. Mom's friend Marcy quietly asked whether she should take over the welcome dinner bill. Jonah said it had already been handled. Denise's name remained on the original agreement, but Mom had paid in advance, and neither of us wanted to turn the evening into another debt. The empty seats at my parents' table seemed to grow larger as the room relaxed around them. Jonah sat beside me and kept one hand on my leg. You okay? He asked. No, me neither. Good. He smiled faintly. Dinner ended early. Nobody wanted a second round of speeches. In our room upstairs, I took off my shoes and found a crescent-shaped blister on my heel. Jonah sat at the edge of the bed, still wearing his jacket, staring at nothing. That went well, I said. He laughed once and covered his face. I sat beside him. For a while, we listened to the inn settling around us, doors opening, plumbing moving through the walls, voices passing in the hallway. I should have stopped her, Jonah said. You didn't know. I had an idea. You thought she might announce our wedding was canceled? I thought she might try to explain your decision for you. She always explains me. I know. I leaned my head against his shoulder. My phone had 31 notifications. The first message was from Mom. Please come downstairs. Your father is devastated. I stared at it. Jonah did not ask what I was going to do. I typed, I'm not coming down. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then returned. He may not attend tomorrow if you take this away from him. I read it twice. Not if he chooses not to come, if I take it away. I wrote, Dad is invited. His role changed because he celebrated the wedding being canceled. Mom called. I let it ring. She called again. I answered and said, I'm not changing my mind. You humiliated him. Her voice was quiet and controlled. Somewhere behind her, I could hear Dad talking. You all humiliated me. Your sister made a mistake. She lied. She panicked. Dad toasted. He believed you were unhappy. He was happy about it. That's cruel. It's what I saw. Mom lowered her voice further. Give him back the walk. No, he won't sit there like a stranger. He wouldn't be a stranger. You know your father? Yes. The answer stopped her. Please, she said, do not make tomorrow something you can never repair. I looked at my wedding dress hanging from the wardrobe door. I already can't repair tonight. Mom began to cry. I closed my eyes. I love you, I said. I hope you come tomorrow. Then I ended the call. Jonah took the phone from my hand and set it face down on the nightstand. At midnight, Aunt Carol texted that she had Mom in her room and would stay with her. Tessa sent nothing. Dad sent nothing. At 7 the next morning, I woke to rain tapping lightly against the window. For one soft second, I forgot. Then my phone lit up. A message from Dad. I'm downstairs. We need to talk before you get dressed. I read the message without moving. Jonah woke beside me. What is it? My dad's downstairs. He pushed himself up on one elbow. Do you want me to come? I looked at his face, creased from sleep, and thought about Dad seeing him beside me. Every word would become evidence. Every silence would become control. No, I said, but if I'm not back in 20 minutes, come find me. I'll give you 15. I put on leggings, a sweatshirt, and the sneakers I had packed for the trip home. My wedding dress hung from the wardrobe door behind me, still inside its garment bag. The hallway smelled like coffee and carpet cleaner. Downstairs, staff members moved quietly between the dining room and lobby, removing glasses from the night before. Dad waited in the small sitting room where we had met as a family the previous afternoon. He was already dressed for the wedding. Gray suit, white shirt, dark blue tie. The tie I had given him for Father's Day because it matched the maid of honor dress Tessa would no longer wear. He stood when I entered. You're dressed, I said. It's your wedding day. The words were almost tender. I sat in the same armchair as yesterday. Dad stayed standing. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Rain ticked against the tall windows. Beyond them, the white chairs on the lawn shone wet beneath the gray morning. "I didn't sleep," he said. "Me neither. Your mother cried most of the night." "I know. Aunt Carol thinks she's helping. She probably is." Dad rubbed one hand across his jaw. "I don't want to fight with you. Okay, I want you to fix this." I looked down at my sneakers. He exhaled impatiently. "Don't do that." "Do what?" "Sit there like I'm attacking you. You asked me to fix it. I'm asking you to stop this before it goes further. It already went further. Because Tessa panicked in front of people. Because you toasted." His face tightened. I thought my daughter had realized she was making a mistake. "You didn't ask me. I trusted your sister." There it was, plain enough to hold. You trusted Tessa to tell you what I wanted more than you trusted me. She was concerned. She wanted the wedding canceled. She wanted the pressure to stop. For her. For everyone. No, not for everyone. Dad paced to the window. On the lawn, a man in a black rain jacket lifted one chair, tipped the water from it, then moved to the next. "I shouldn't have raised the glass," Dad said. It was the first time he had admitted even that much. I waited. He turned. "But you didn't have to punish me in front of the whole room. I didn't plan what happened. You took the microphone. After Tessa used it to cancel my wedding, you could have handled it privately. How? Pretend she was right until dessert? Don't be smart with me. The old sentence, the old place." I stood. Dad's expression changed. "You're really doing this. I'm getting married. You know what I mean?" "Yes." He stepped toward me. "Are you going to walk down that aisle alone just to prove a point?" "I'm not proving anything. You've imagined me walking you since you were a little girl. So have you. Then why are you taking it away?" I could hear Mom's words in his mouth. "Taking it away. You gave it away last night." His eyes flashed. "I made one mistake." "No. You made one honest choice." "What is that supposed to mean?" "You heard my wedding was gone and you were relieved. You raised a glass before you even looked at me." "I looked at you." "Then that's worse." He stared at me. My throat hurt. I wanted him to apologize correctly. I wanted him to cross the few feet between us and say the one thing that would let me fold into him. Instead, he said, "This isn't you." A laugh escaped me. Apparently, no one knows who I am unless I'm making things easier. I know exactly who you are. Then come to my wedding, as a guest, as my father. He looked toward the doorway as though Jonah might be listening from the hall. "You're asking me to sit there while everybody watches you reject me. I'm asking you to watch me get married. That's not enough." The words left his mouth before either of us could soften them. I felt them enter the room and settle. Dad looked away. I nodded. "Then I guess you have your answer. Leah, you can stay. You're invited. But you're not walking me down the aisle." He reached for his suit jacket where it lay across the sofa. "You'll regret this. I already do." He put on the jacket. At the door, he stopped. His hand rested on the frame. For 1 second, I thought he would turn around. He didn't. The sitting room door closed softly behind him. Jonah found me 3 minutes later. He didn't ask what Dad had decided. He sat beside me, took both my hands, and waited until I could breathe normally. "He wore the tie," I said. "I saw. It matched Tessa's dress." "I know. He came dressed." "I know." I thought that meant he was staying. Jonah pulled me against him. We sat there while the staff cleared the last traces of the dinner where my family had toasted our wedding's death. At 10, Aunt Carol arrived at my room carrying a garment steamer in one hand and a paper bag of breakfast sandwiches in the other. "Your mother is coming," she announced. "She's not currently useful, so we're giving her an hour. Where's Dad?" "Driving." "Home?" She didn't say. "And Tessa?" Aunt Carol set the steamer on the floor, not answering. I nodded. She looked at me carefully. "Do you want me to say something comforting or insult them creatively? Can you steam a dress?" "No, but I watched a video in the elevator. That's comforting." Mom arrived at 11:20. By then my hair was pinned up, my makeup was half finished, and Aunt Carol had learned that steam rises. Mom stood just inside the room wearing a dark rose-colored dress. Her eyes were swollen beneath carefully applied concealer. "You look beautiful," I said. She began to cry. Aunt Carol handed her a tissue. "Not on the dress." Mom laughed despite herself. For a little while we avoided everything. She fastened my necklace. Aunt Carol fought with the garment bag zipper. The makeup artist asked Mom where I got my eyes, and Mom said, "Her father," before going quiet. When I stepped into the dress, Mom buttoned the back. Her fingers shook over the 12 covered buttons. "Tessa should be doing this," she whispered. "I know. She's ashamed. She can still come. She doesn't think you want her." I told her she was invited. Mom fastened the final button. "She wanted to stand beside you. She wanted my wedding canceled. She thought she was helping." I met Mom's eyes in the mirror. "No," I said. "She thought she knew better than me." Mom looked down at the skirt. "Your father left." "I know. He thinks staying would be agreeing with how you treated him." I turned. "Are you leaving too?" The question frightened her. I saw the answer she had prepared and the one she was choosing between. "No," she said finally. "I'm staying." Relief moved through me so sharply I had to sit. Mom knelt to straighten the hem. She did not ask for forgiveness. I did not thank her for attending my wedding. That was the best we could manage. The rain stopped 20 minutes before the ceremony. Staff members dried the chairs, but the lawn remained soft and dark beneath them. The clouds lifted enough for a thin stripe of sunlight to fall across the inn. Aunt Carol waited with me behind the closed doors. "Do you want my arm?" she asked. I thought about it. "No." "Good. These shoes are not stable." The music began. When the doors opened, everyone stood. The aisle looked longer without Dad. I saw Mom in the front row, one empty chair beside her. Tessa's chair was gone. Claudia and Rick sat 3 rows back. Russell, the accidental toaster, gave me a desperate thumbs up. Then I saw Jonah. His face folded before I reached the first row. Tessa had once told me Evan cried before he even saw her, and she had thought it meant something. Watching Jonah, I understood why. It did mean something. It just didn't promise everything. I walked slowly, not because I wanted to make an entrance, but because the ground was soft and my heels kept sinking. Halfway down the aisle, somebody laughed quietly. I laughed too. Jonah wiped his face. When I reached him, he took my hands. "You came," he whispered. Traffic was terrible. He laughed through his tears. The ceremony lasted 18 minutes. We had written our own vows, then cut them down after realizing neither of us wanted to read a personal essay in public. Jonah promised to tell me when he was scared before the fear came out sounding like an ultimatum. I promised not to treat every disagreement like proof that love was ending. When it was my turn to place the ring on his hand, I dropped it. It landed in the grass. The officiant crouched with us while 80 adults leaned sideways to see. Jonah found it pressed into the mud beside his shoe. "Symbolic," he murmured. "Shut up." The microphone caught it. Everyone laughed. Mom laughed too, one hand covering her mouth. We were pronounced married beneath clouds that had finally begun to break. At the reception, the short ribs were excellent. The chicken was aggressively beige. The chocolate espresso cake tasted exactly as it had at the bakery, which felt like a small miracle. Mom sat at a table with Aunt Carol instead of the family table that had been removed that morning. She stayed through dinner. When the DJ announced the first dance, Jonah took my hand. "Do you still want to do this?" he asked. Yes. There was no anniversary dance afterward, no couples dance, no father-daughter song. When Sinatra began playing by mistake, I froze. The DJ's face went pale. He reached for the controls. I shook my head. "Leave it," I said. Jonah held me while the song Dad had chosen filled the room. I did not pretend it meant something else. I cried against my husband's shoulder, and he kept dancing. Mom left shortly after the cake was cut. She hugged me for a long time at the door. "Your father loves you," she whispered. I love him too. She waited for more. There wasn't any. Tessa never came. Near midnight, after the last guests left, Jonah and I returned to our room carrying a plate with 2 untouched slices of cake. I kicked off my shoes. He loosened his tie. My phone sat on the nightstand where I had left it that morning. There were messages from guests, photographs, a voicemail from Claudia, and a blurry video from Russell of our ring. Falling into the grass. Nothing from Dad. Nothing from Tessa. Jonah handed me a fork. We sat on the floor in our wedding clothes, eating chocolate espresso cake from the same plate. "I'm happy," I said. He looked at me. "You sound surprised." "I am. Me too." I rested my head against the side of the bed. "I'm also really sad." "I know. Both things fit." Outside, rain began tapping the window again, soft enough that neither of us moved to close the curtains. In the morning, my dress lay across the armchair like someone had fainted in it. Jonah was asleep diagonally across the bed, one bare foot hanging over the edge. The cake plate sat on the carpet beside him, with both forks stuck in a smear of frosting. I found my phone beneath his jacket. There was one new message. Tessa had sent it at 4:16 in the morning. "I hope someday you understand that I was trying to protect you." I read it twice. Then I typed, "I understand that you believe that. You still did not have the right to decide for me." I watched the message deliver. No answer came. Dad remained silent. Jonah woke while I was trying to fold my dress and made a noise of alarm. "You can't fold that." "Why?" "I don't know. It seems regulated. The dress police will be here at 9. He got out of bed, studied the layers of fabric, and called the front desk for help. A woman named Beverly arrived with a garment bag twice the size of the original and restored the dress to something resembling dignity. She never asked why my mother or maid of honor wasn't there. She simply zipped it, congratulated us, and handed Jonah the forgotten marriage license envelope from the front desk. He held it up. "We're official." "We were official yesterday. This has a seal. You're very vulnerable to office supplies." He tucked the envelope into his suitcase between 2 T-shirts so it wouldn't bend. That tenderness nearly made me cry again. We had rented a small cottage 3 hours north for 5 days. It sat beside a lake too cold to swim in and had a porch with 2 rocking chairs that tilted slightly toward each other. I turned off my phone, not silenced it. Off. The first day, I slept for 14 hours. The second, Jonah burned pancakes because the stove had one setting between cold and surface of the sun. The third, we walked around a little downtown where every shop sold either candles or jam. Nobody asked us to fix anything. Nobody asked if Tessa was okay. We talked about the wedding only when we wanted to. We laughed about the dropped ring. We argued over whether Russell's accidental toast should be forgiven and decided he had redeemed himself with the video. At night, grief arrived without warning. I would remember Dad in his suit, or Mom alone in the front row, or the empty space beside me while the dress buttons were fastened. Jonah never rushed to turn those moments into gratitude. He didn't say, "At least you have me." He said, "I know." On the last evening, we sat on the porch with 2 mugs of terrible cottage coffee. "Do you regret not giving him the walk?" I asked. Jonah looked toward the lake. "That's not mine to regret. I'm asking what you think. I think you would have spent the whole aisle wondering if he supported you or just won." I wrapped both hands around my mug. "That's what I think too. Do you regret it?" "Yes." He turned. "And no," I added. "I regret that those were the choices." He nodded. "Both things fit." When we got home, the wedding gifts still lined the living room wall. Someone had moved them closer together while we were gone. For one irrational second, I thought my family had been inside. Then Jonah admitted he had straightened them the morning of the wedding because he'd needed to control one object in his life. We opened gifts on the floor, mixing bowls, towels, a toaster with enough buttons to launch something. Claudia and Rick had given us the champagne flutes from the shower, along with a note that said only, "For every ordinary Tuesday worth celebrating." Mom had sent no gift. Dad's name appeared beside hers on the welcome dinner receipt and nowhere else. The first Sunday after we returned, I woke at 5:30 with the sensation that I had forgotten an appointment. By 6, I understood. Pot roast. Jonah was reading on the couch. "Do you want to go out?" he asked. "Where?" "Anywhere." "I'm not hiding." "Okay, I can sit in my own apartment at 6 on a Sunday." "You can. I'm not going to feel guilty." He turned a page. Ambitious. At 6:11, Mom called. I stared at the screen until it stopped. Then she called again. I answered. Hi, sweetheart." Neither of us said it had been 2 weeks. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Nothing. I wanted to hear your voice." I sat at the dining table. Half the place cards still filled a basket near the wall because I couldn't bring myself to throw them away. "How are you?" Mom asked. "Okay. How's married life?" "Very different from engaged life." She laughed too eagerly. "Did you have a nice trip?" "We did." I saw the lake picture. I had posted one photograph of Jonah on the porch, holding a jar of jam the shopkeeper claimed had won a state award. Dad saw it too, she added. "I waited. He misses you. He has my number. He doesn't know if you want him to call. He knew how to call when he wanted me to postpone." Mom inhaled. "I don't want to fight." "Neither do I." "Then maybe come for dinner next week." "Will Dad apologize?" "I don't know. Will Tessa? She's having a very difficult time." I closed my eyes. "Mom, I'm not excusing what she did. You always say that while excusing what she did. She lost her marriage, her house, her place in your wedding. She lost her place after she lied." "I know." "Do you?" Mom's voice grew small. I stayed. The words hurt because they were true and insufficient. "You did," I said. "I sat there alone. I saw you. Your father was devastated." "I know. I'm not asking you to forget what happened. I just don't want this family broken forever." I looked at the takeout menu still taped inside the kitchen cabinet. "I'm not coming to Sunday dinner." "How long?" "I don't know. That sounds like punishment. It's space. From me, too. For now, from the group." She was quiet. Then she said, "Can I call you?" "Yes." "Can I see you?" "Just you." The silence that followed had weight. "All right," she said. It was the first boundary she accepted without negotiating. 3 days later, Dad called while I was at the grocery store. I answered beside a display of canned tomatoes. "Tessa needs help Saturday," he said. "No hello." "With what?" "She has to clear the rest of her things out of our garage. She found an apartment." "That's good. Your mother's back is acting up and I can't lift those bins alone. You could hire somebody." "We don't need to hire somebody. We have family." I looked at the cans in front of me, crushed, diced, whole peeled. "I'm busy Saturday." "Doing what?" "That doesn't matter. So you're refusing to help your sister. I'm unavailable. You're making a point." "No, you're hearing one." A cart squeaked past me. Dad lowered his voice. "She is still your sister." "I know. She made one terrible mistake. She made a series of choices. So did you. I put a can of crushed tomatoes in my basket. You missed my wedding. You told me I wasn't wanted. I told you that you couldn't walk me down the aisle. You chose not to come. You knew what that would mean to me." "Yes. And you did it anyway." There was no answer that would move us anywhere new. "I hope the move goes well," I said. "Your mother raised you better than this." The words were designed to reach the oldest part of me. They did. I still ended the call. For the next hour, I moved through the store with my body buzzing. I bought coffee filters we didn't need and forgot the milk. Jonah found me sitting in the car with grocery bags at my feet. He opened the passenger door. "Why are you out here?" "I forgot the milk. We can survive. I bought 12 cans of tomatoes. That's harder, but I believe in us." I laughed, then started crying. He crouched beside the car. "Dad wanted me to help Tessa move." "What did you say?" "No." "How does that feel?" "Awful." "Okay. You're supposed to tell me I did the right thing. I don't know if it was the right thing. I know it was your thing. I looked at the red cans visible through one bag. She's moving out of Mom and Dad's. That's good. I should be happy for her. You can be. I'm not. That's allowed too. Mom came to the apartment the following week carrying chicken soup in the same Dutch oven she had brought the night Tessa moved in. She stood in our kitchen while I found a container for half of it. You look rested, she said. I am. Marriage suits you. It's been 3 weeks. I'm optimistic. She noticed the takeout menu inside the open cabinet. What's that? Nothing. I shut the door. We ate soup at the dining table. Mom talked about work, Aunt Carol's new obsession with water aerobics, and Dad's refusal to replace a grill that had rusted through on one side. She did not mention Tessa for 40 minutes. Then she said, the move was difficult. I set down my spoon. I'm not asking you to do anything. Okay. Your father pulled something in his shoulder. I'm sorry, he won't admit it. That sounds like him. Mom folded her napkin into smaller and smaller squares. He wants to talk to you. He can call. He thinks you'll hang up. If he calls to argue, I will. What if he asks you to meet? I looked at her. Is he asking? He might be. 2 days later, Dad texted, breakfast, Saturday, 9. No question mark. I almost refused on principle. Instead, I replied, where? We met at a diner near the hardware store. Dad was already in a booth, wearing the Mercer tool windbreaker despite the warm morning. His right shoulder sat stiffly beneath it. I slid into the seat across from him. You hurt yourself. It's a muscle. Muscles can be hurt. It's aware of me. A server poured coffee. Dad added too much sugar, stirred, and watched the spoon. I don't want this, he said. What? You and me not talking. We're talking now, you know what I mean. I waited. He looked older than he had at the wedding, or maybe I had always edited his face. What Tessa did was wrong, he said. The sentence was careful, expensive. Yes. She shouldn't have taken the microphone. No. She shouldn't have announced anything. No. Dad looked up, but Jonah turned it into a spectacle. My hope closed quietly. Tessa made it a spectacle. He listed our private business in front of everyone. He stated the decision she was lying about. You took the microphone after him. Yes. You said things that should have stayed in the family. Why? So the family could keep denying them? He leaned back. I'm trying here. You're trying to make the apology large enough to bring me back, but small enough that you're still right. His face hardened. That sounds rehearsed. It isn't. Your mother is caught in the middle. Your sister is barely speaking to anyone. Sundays are miserable. At some point, someone has to be the bigger person. I stared at him. There she was, his steady girl, not missed, reassigned. I was the bigger person, I said, at the cake tasting, at the dress shop, at the shower, at every dinner where I swallowed something so Tessa wouldn't have to. This is exactly the scorekeeping I'm talking about. No, this is memory. Dad put cash on the table before our food arrived. You're not ready, he said. For what? To move forward? He stood, favoring his shoulder. I watched him walk out past the pie case and into the bright parking lot. When I got home, Jonah was assembling the complicated toaster. How did it go? He asked. I put my purse down. He never asked if I was happy. Jonah stopped turning the instruction booklet. That was when I understood what Dad had come to recover. Not me, my function. The complicated toaster burned the first 4 pieces of bread and then worked perfectly for no reason we could identify. Married life was like that, not dramatic, not magically peaceful, ordinary in a way I had not realized I was hungry for. Jonah left wet towels on the bed. I opened kitchen cabinets and forgot to close them. We argued about whether a chair in the bedroom could still be called a chair once it held 3 weeks of clean laundry. The difference was that our arguments ended where they happened. They did not become votes on our character. One Thursday, Jonah came home late without calling. I had dinner cold on the stove and 20 minutes of imagined catastrophe built inside me. You could have texted, I said when he walked in. My phone died. You have a charger in the car. It's broken, then replace it. He dropped his keys into the bowl. I said, I'm sorry. No, you explained why it happened. His face tightened. For 1 second, the room felt like the night of the shower. I saw both of us recognize it. Jonah took a breath. You're right. I'm sorry. I should have found a way to call. Thank you. I also don't like the sauce you made. That apology was briefly excellent. We ate the bad sauce anyway. No one raised a glass. Mom visited every other week. At first, she carried news from the rest of the family like contraband. Dad's shoulder was better. Tessa's apartment had poor water pressure. Sunday dinner had become very quiet. Each time I said, "Mom, I don't need updates." Each time she looked surprised. Then she stopped. Without Dad and Tessa between us, I had to learn who my mother was when she wasn't managing the temperature of a room. She liked old black and white movies. She hated driving at night. She could identify almost any bird by its call, but refused to admit this was a skill because she had learned it from a calendar. She also apologized badly. "I'm sorry everything got so out of hand," she said while we were washing soup bowls one afternoon. "That's not an apology." She bristled. I said I was sorry. For what? For what happened? What did you do? Mom dried the same bowl for too long. I don't want to relive every detail. I'm not asking for every detail. You know I never wanted to hurt you. I know. That answer did not comfort her. She put the bowl down. I should not have asked you to change the wedding. Which time? Her eyes flashed. This is what makes it hard. What? You want me to keep apologizing until I use the exact words you've chosen? No. I want to know you understand what you're apologizing for. Mom picked up her purse and left 10 minutes later. She did not call for 2 weeks. The old me would have gone to her house with flowers and an explanation. I bought flowers for our dining table instead. When Mom returned, she brought no soup. She sat on our couch and looked at the gift boxes we still had not broken down. I was relieved when Tessa said the wedding was off, she said. I stayed quiet. I knew I should ask you. I knew it didn't sound right, but I was tired, and I thought if you postponed, maybe everything would calm down, and what would happen to me? She looked at her hands. I assumed you'd be all right, because I'm steady. Her mouth twisted, because you usually are. That's not the same as not hurting. I know. This time, I believed she was beginning to. She looked toward the framed wedding photograph on the bookshelf. Jonah and I stood beneath the trees, laughing after I dropped the ring. The empty front row chair was outside the frame. I shouldn't have told you I stayed as though you owed me for it, Mom said. I almost didn't. Why did you? At first? Because I thought your father would change his mind and one of us had to keep a seat for him. The answer stung. And when he didn't? She looked at the photograph. I wanted to see my daughter get married. It was not enough to erase anything. It was true. I reached for her hand. Mom began joining me for lunch once a month. We met at places near my office, so there was a natural ending when my break was over. She never brought Dad without asking. She never invited Tessa. The first time she asked whether I might see Dad again, I said, not if he wants the same conversation. What conversation would you want? One where I'm not responsible for making him feel forgiven. Mom nodded. She did not argue. That was how I knew she heard me. My birthday came in October. Dad mailed a card. He signed it, Love, Dad, in the same blocky handwriting he used on hardware store lists. No accusation, no invitation, no extra message tucked inside. Tessa sent a text at 7 in the morning. Happy birthday. I love you even if you don't believe that right now. I replied, I believe you love me. She called immediately. I watched the phone ring. Then I answered. What does that mean? She asked. Which part? You believe I love you. I do. But? I sat on the edge of the bed. Jonah was in the kitchen making coffee and pretending not to listen. But loving me doesn't mean you get access to me. Tessa was quiet. I want to apologize, she said. You did. No, I sent a message at 4 in the morning defending myself. That was more of an explanation. Can I see you? Every part of me reacted. Hope, anger, guilt, memory. Tessa beside me on the attic floor. Tessa fixing the strap of my wedding dress. Tessa taking the microphone. Coffee, I said. Public place. Her laugh was hurt. You think I'm going to attack you? I think I'll leave sooner if I need to. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our apartments. Tessa was already there with 2 drinks. She had remembered my order. I sat across from her. She looked thinner. Her hair was shorter, cut just below her chin. She had stopped wearing her wedding ring, but a pale line remained around her finger. Happy birthday, she said. Thank you. She pushed my coffee toward me. I'm sorry. I waited. I'm sorry I announced the wedding was off. Okay. I thought I was helping. You already told me that. I need you to understand what my head was like. No, you need me to forgive you. Those aren't the same. She leaned back. I was falling apart, Leah. I know. Every morning, I woke up in Mom and Dad's guest room with my clothes in plastic bins, and every day there was another envelope for your wedding, or another appointment, or somebody asking whether I was excited. I stopped talking about the wedding around you. That made it worse. I stared at her. It made me feel like everybody knew I was too fragile to hear the word cake. You asked for space. I didn't know what I was asking for. And I was supposed to know? No. She rubbed both palms against her cup. I don't know. For once, she let uncertainty sit without turning it into my assignment. Why did you announce it in front of everyone? I asked. I panicked. That isn't the whole answer. Her eyes moved toward the window. Tessa. She swallowed. I thought if I said it, you wouldn't contradict me. The honesty hurt worse than the excuse. Because you thought I agreed? Because I thought you wouldn't embarrass me. There it was. The family system reduced to one sentence. She knew the wedding was not canceled. She simply believed I would sacrifice it before I made her look wrong. I thought once everyone knew, you'd feel relieved, she added quickly. I thought you'd realize it was what you wanted. No. You thought public pressure would finish the argument. She looked down. Yes. I sat back. The coffee shop filled with ordinary noise, milk steaming, cups touching saucers. A man near the door laughing into his phone. Dad raised the glass because of you, I said. I didn't tell him to. You gave him the story he wanted. You think I don't know that? I don't know what you know. Her eyes filled. I lost you, she said. That wasn't something that happened to you. The tears spilled over. She wiped them away angrily. Do you hate me? No. Would it be easier if you did? Probably. She laughed through her tears. For a second, we were sisters again. Not restored, just recognizable. Are we done forever? She asked. I don't know. What am I supposed to do with that? Live with not knowing. She looked at me as if I had handed her something heavy. Maybe I had. I can't go back, I said. I can't be the person you call every time something hurts. I can't keep proving I love you by giving you whatever you're afraid I'll have. I'm not asking for that. You will. She started to object, then stopped. Maybe, she admitted. I need distance. How much? I don't know. She nodded, crying quietly now. I left the coffee shop without hugging her. Outside, I stood beside my car for 5 minutes before I could unlock it. The pain did not mean the boundary was wrong. It meant the person on the other side mattered. Dad texted 3 days later. Your mother says Tessa spoke to you. I will not ask what was said. I read the message several times. Then another appeared. I owe you a different conversation. If you're willing, may I come by Sunday? The word may stop me. I showed Jonah. What do you want? He asked. To say no. Okay, I also want him to come. Okay, those cannot both be your answer. They can. You taught me that. Dad arrived Sunday at 4. He knocked instead of using the spare key he had never returned. I had changed the lock after the wedding anyway, not because I thought he would enter, but because I needed our door to belong to us. Jonah offered him coffee, then went for a walk. Dad stood in the living room looking at the wedding photograph. You look happy, he said. We were. Are? Yes. We are. He sat on the couch. For once, he did not begin with what he wanted back. I raised that glass because I was relieved, he said. I lowered myself into the chair across from him. I told myself I was relieved for you. I wasn't. I was relieved because if your wedding stopped, Tessa would stop hurting in front of me, and your mother would stop asking me to fix something I couldn't fix. He looked at his hands. I knew it would hurt you. I just thought you could take it. My throat tightened. Dad's voice roughened. I have spent your whole life calling you strong when what I meant was convenient. I trusted you to survive disappointment, so I kept handing yours out whenever the family needed somewhere to put it. Neither of us moved. I missed your wedding, he said. No one took that from me. I chose not to come because sitting in that chair felt like admitting I was wrong. Tears blurred his face. It was the worst choice I have ever made. I believed him. That did not make the lost day return. Dad wiped his eyes with the heel of his hand. I don't expect you to forgive me today. Good. He laughed once, painfully. I'd like to see you again. What would that look like? I don't know. Then I do. He waited. Coffee once a month. Just us. No messages from Mom. No updates about Tessa. No requests for me to organize things or fix things or make Sunday dinner normal. Dad nodded slowly. And if you turn it into another conversation about being the bigger person, I leave. All right, this isn't everything going back. I know. I wasn't sure he did, but when he stood to leave, he did not ask for a hug. That was the first sign that he might. The first coffee was terrible. Dad arrived 12 minutes early and chose a table beside the restroom because he said the others were drafty. I ordered tea even though I wanted coffee, then spent the entire hour resenting the tea. We discussed road construction, the complicated toaster, and whether Mercer Tool had changed suppliers since his retirement. He asked Jonah's opinion about rechargeable drills but did not ask Jonah directly, which made the question feel like reconnaissance. At 53 minutes, Dad looked at his watch. I said an hour, I told him. I know. You can stay until the hour. I don't want to push it. That was new. As he put on his jacket, he stopped. Are you happy? The question came so late I nearly missed what it meant. Yes, I said. Good. He nodded, paid for both drinks, and left without asking when Sunday dinners would resume. The second coffee was less terrible. The third was almost pleasant. Dad told me he had watched Russell's video of the ceremony. Mom had received it from Aunt Carol, who had received it from Russell, who had probably sent it to half the state. You dropped the ring, Dad said. I did. Your mother said that part made everyone laugh. It did. He ran one finger around the rim of his cup. I watched you walk in. The screen had caught only the last few steps. I knew because I had watched it too. You looked like yourself, he said. I understood what he meant. Not his steady girl, not Tessa's backup, not Jonah's influenced fiancé. Myself. Dad canceled our fourth coffee because his truck needed a new water pump. His message said, I'm sorry. Can we reschedule? If not, I understand. No guilt. No emergency invented from a machine that could sit in a driveway. We met the following week. Mom continued coming to lunch. Sometimes we talked about the family. Mostly, we didn't. She learned not to tense whenever I said Tessa's name. I learned that asking how Tessa was did not mean I had volunteered to help her. She's seeing a therapist, Mom told me once. Good. She says the apartment feels more like hers now. Good. Mom stirred her iced tea. She misses you. I know. That was all. Tessa sent a message near Thanksgiving. I know you said you need distance. I'm not asking you to come Thursday. I just don't want you to think I'm the reason Mom didn't invite you. Mom had invited us. Jonah and I had already declined. I replied, I know it was my choice. Tessa reacted with a heart and sent nothing else. Jonah and I spent Thanksgiving with Claudia, Rick, Aunt Carol, and a turkey that remained frozen in the center until 9 at night. Russell arrived with 3 pies and no explanation for why one of them had a bite missing. At 8:30, Dad texted, Hope dinner is good. I sent back a photograph of the raw turkey. He replied, Put it back in until Easter. That was the first time he made me laugh without making me pay for it. Mom's birthday was in February. She called me 3 weeks beforehand. Your father made a reservation, she said. I'm proud of him. He called the wrong location first. Still, it's just dinner. Aunt Carol, your father, you and Jonah. She paused. And Tessa. My body reacted before my mind did. Shoulders tight, breath shallow. Mom continued quickly. I told her you might not come. She understands. Does she? She said she does. I turned in my desk chair and looked through the office window. Rain streaked the glass, thin and gray like the morning of the wedding. I'll talk to Jonah. Of course. No offense. No suggestion that consulting my husband meant I had lost my mind. That was new, too. At home, Jonah listened while I listed reasons not to go. It could be awful. Yes. Tessa might say something. Yes. Dad might defend her. He might. Mom might spend her birthday watching us stare at the bread basket. Bread has survived worse. I glared at him. He sat beside me. Do you want to go? I want to. That's not the same. No. What do you actually want? I thought about Mom fastening the buttons on my dress. Mom sitting alone in the front row. Mom learning to apologize without asking me to erase the thing she apologized for. I want to go for her. Okay. We leave if it gets bad. Okay, even before cake. He took my hands. We live near cake. We'll recover. The restaurant was an old Italian place with red leather booths and framed photographs of people no one in our family recognized. Dad and Mom were already seated when we arrived. Aunt Carol came behind us carrying a gift bag large enough to contain another restaurant. Tessa arrived last. She stood at the end of the table in a black coat looking from me to Jonah. Hi, she said. Hi. She hugged Mom, kissed Dad's cheek, and took the chair across from me. No one tried to make us embrace. Dinner began badly. Dad asked the server for a wine recommendation, then rejected every option. Aunt Carol told him he was not buying a tractor. Mom insisted she did not need appetizers while eating half of ours. Jonah cut a piece of bread, and the knife slipped, launching it onto the floor near another table. Good start, he said. Tessa laughed. I did too. The sound startled both of us. For a while, we managed ordinary conversation. Tessa had started working from an office again instead of remotely because she was tired of speaking only to the woman in the apartment above her. Jonah had replaced the broken car charger. Dad's grill finally collapsed during a windstorm, and Mom had photographed him standing over it like he was identifying a body. When the food arrived, Mom looked around the table. This is all I wanted, she said. The sentence was simple. Still, I felt the old pressure hidden inside all. Tessa felt it too. She picked up her wine glass. To Mom, she said, who somehow got everyone in the same room. Mom smiled nervously. We raised our glasses. Tessa continued before anyone drank, and to surviving the most dramatic wedding in family history. My hand went cold around the stem. Aunt Carol put down her glass. Jonah's knee touched mine beneath the table. Tessa gave a small laugh. Too soon? Yes, I said. Her smile disappeared. I was trying to acknowledge the elephant. No, you were trying to turn it into a joke. She set down her glass. I apologized to you, and I told you I needed distance. We've had distance. It's been 6 months. That doesn't mean we're done. Tessa looked toward Dad. I saw it happen. The glance, the silent request, the old arrangement reaching for its familiar shape. Dad looked at me. Then he turned to Tessa. No, he said. She blinked. No what? Don't make her pay for coming tonight. I'm not. You are. Her face hardened. Of course you'd say that now. Tessa, Mom warned. No. He's spent 6 months acting like I destroyed the family by myself. Dad placed both hands on the table. You tried to cancel your sister's wedding in front of 40 people. I thought she wanted out. You knew she didn't. Tessa looked at me, betrayed by the fact that I had told the truth. I said I was sorry. And I raised a glass. Dad continued. I helped you. Then I missed the wedding because I was too proud to sit down. The table had gone silent. People at nearby tables kept talking. Forks scraped plates. A server carried a cake past us with one candle burning in the center. Dad lowered his voice. Leah does not owe us normal because you apologized. She does not owe us Sunday dinner. She does not owe us an easier version of what happened. Tessa's eyes filled. So now she's the favorite. The words came out small and ugly. I had imagined hearing them from her for months. I thought I would feel victorious. I didn't. Dad shook his head. This isn't favoritism. It feels like it. It feels like consequence. Tessa pushed back her chair. Mom reached toward her, then stopped herself. That stopped Tessa, too. She looked at Mom's hand suspended over the table, then at Dad, then at me. I don't know how to do this, she said. For once, no one rushed to answer. Tessa wiped under her eyes. I don't know how to be in this family if everybody is waiting for me to be selfish. We're not waiting, I said. We're noticing. She flinched. I continued before I could soften it into nothing. But noticing isn't the same as hating you. Her shoulders dropped slightly. I love you, I said. I'm still angry. Both are true. Tessa looked at the empty space beside her plate. What am I supposed to say? Nothing right now. She sat back down. Dinner did not become comfortable. That mattered. We ate while discomfort remained in the room. Nobody asked me to fix it. Nobody made Tessa leave. Nobody pretended her toast had been funny. When Mom's cake arrived, the candle had gone out in transit. Aunt Carol relit it with a barbecue lighter from her purse. Why do you have that? Jonah asked. I prepare for birthdays. Mom laughed so hard she had to wipe tears from her face. Dad did not make a speech. He raised his glass once, looked at Mom, and said, Happy birthday, Denise. Nothing hidden inside it. We drank. Outside the restaurant, Tessa stood beside her car while Jonah helped Aunt Carol fit the enormous gift bag into her trunk. I'm sorry about the toast, Tessa said. Thank you. I was nervous. I know. She shoved both hands into her coat pockets. Dad told me about the coffee rule. He wasn't supposed to give you updates. He didn't. Mom did. I almost laughed. Tessa smiled faintly. I'm trying not to ask how long, she said. I know. Does that count? A little. She nodded. Then she got into her car without asking for a hug. Dad approached while I was putting on my gloves. I'm sorry, he said. I should have stopped that before she finished. You stopped it. Eventually. You're learning. He studied my face, uncertain whether I was joking. Hardware store Saturday? He asked. I need one thing. You always need one thing. I'll write it down. Coffee first? Oat milk? You drank it. My stomach was confused. I smiled. Saturday, I said. Jonah and I drove home through light snow. At the apartment, 2 champagne flutes stood in the cabinet above the complicated toaster. We'd been saving them for our first anniversary, which was still 6 months away. Jonah took them down. What are you doing? Ordinary Tuesday. It's Friday. Even more special. He opened the inexpensive bottle of champagne Aunt Carol had forced us to take from Mom's dinner and filled both glasses. The engraving caught the kitchen light. He handed one to me. To your mother, he said. We already toasted her. To your dad. Don't overreach. To your sister? I gave him a look. Okay, he said. I'm bad at this. I lifted my glass. To us. That seems obvious. Obvious is underrated. He touched his glass to mine. The sound was small, clear. Ours. No microphone. No permission. This time, when someone raised a glass to my marriage, I raised mine too.